Chapter 33-36. Presently, Ji Tianxing had just recovered to the Divine King realm. He could only conjure up one clone, at most 9 phantoms. Given time, his strength, realm, and foundation would become even more robust. He could even conjure up even more clones and phantoms. Just like back then, when he was a peak Divine King. Unleashing 10 directional absolute shadows at full power, he could conjure up 9 clones. Each clone had half of the main body strength. As for phantoms, he could even conjure up to 10,000, blotting out the skies and covering the earth with an astonishing commotion. His power alone was comparable to a magnificent army, sufficient to roam the galaxy unhindered. If he encountered a powerful opponent, he could even conjure up 9 clones, joining forces to besiege the opponent. It could be said to be invincible in the same realm. And now, it was Ji Tianxing's first battle after recovering to the Divine King realm. The first time he displayed Absolute Shadow Clone, he obtained an unexpected effect. Not only did he deceive Jing Fei Hong, he even one-shot the towering Wind Divine King in one move. Under such circumstances, Jing Fei Hong was naturally terrified and filled with dread. After weighing the pros and cons for a moment, Jing Fei Hong very wisely chose to stop the battle. After all, Ji Tianxing's strength and methods were evenly matched with him. It was very hard to determine the victor. The towering Wind Divine King was already killed. He became a loner, while Ji Tianxing had 2 Divine Kings helping him. Continuing to fight, he was bound to fall into a passive state, and his injuries would become increasingly severe all the way until he was defeated by Ji Tianxing. Although Jing Fei Hong was very confident and proud, he was absolutely not reckless and foolish. As the lord of a region, he knew how to size up the situation and grasp when to advance and retreat better than anyone else. Brat, this king indeed underestimated you. I didn't expect that you even grasped this kind of divine ability, supreme skill. Our strength is evenly matched. Continuing to fight is also meaningless. Today's battle, consider it your win. But this king will remember this score and make you pay back double sooner or later. Jing Fei Hong glared at Ji Tianxing with a sharp gaze, shouting angrily with an icy cold tone. He already memorized Ji Tianxing's appearance and aura firmly and absolutely would not forget. When the time was right, he would definitely take revenge. After throwing down these few sentences, Jing Fei Hong was about to turn around and leave. However, Ji Tianxing revealed a playful smile and asked in a mocking tone, "What? Stop fighting just like that? Didn't you say that this prince thought too highly of himself and wanted to take this prince's life? This is the Yunyang territory, your territory. Don't you feel ashamed running away with your tail between your legs? Once the news spreads, how are you going to rule the empires and intimidate the people of Yunyang region?" Although these words did not contain a single vulgar word, it was even more heart-wrenching, completely humiliating Jing Fei Hong. He was filled with shame and indignation. His face was red and his lungs were about to explode. However, he knew very well that Ji Tianxing was deliberately provoking him so that he could continue to fight. Damn beast, what a vicious heart. Not only did he kill Ling Feng, he also wanted to provoke this prince to fight again. Then, the 3 of them joined forces to kill me, wanting to kill me here. Damn it. These thoughts flashed through Jing Fei Hong's mind. He glared at Ji Tianxing with a venomous gaze before turning around and tearing the sky apart. Crack! A large spatial fissure was torn open in the sky as Jing Fei Hong stepped into it, his body glowing with white light. Even as he was about to leave, he did not forget to turn back to look at Ji Tianxing and hollered, "Child, this prince has not lost to you. It's just that you're cunning and sly, killing Ling Feng Divine King. Even if this prince leaves today, it won't affect this prince's reputation. This prince is still Regent Lord Yunyang. Just you wait. The next time we meet, it will be the day of your death. Wash your neck and wait for your death." As soon as he finished speaking, he stepped into the spatial fissure without looking back and disappeared. Swoosh! The spatial fissure that was thousands of feet long was healing rapidly as well. the battle was over, and peace was restored between heaven and earth. Chao Qingyu and Lan flew to Ji Tianxing's side and looked up at the spatial fissure that was about to close. They asked in confusion, "Young master, why don't you go after Jing Feihong? Ling Feng Divine King has been killed by you. Jing Feihong is fighting alone. As long as we keep him, the three of us can definitely kill him if we join forces." Ji Tianxing slowly retracted the sword of burial of heaven, his gaze deep and his tone calm, as he said, "Firstly, there's no deep hatred between us and Jing Feihong. There's no need to fight to the death. Secondly, Jing Feihong is an intermediate divine king after all, and he has the advantage of an imperial-level divine weapon. I don't have the confidence to defeat him now. Even if we force him to stay, the three of us can only severely injure him if we use all our strength. Once he's desperate and decides to escape, we still can't keep him. On the other hand, not only will we have to exhaust a lot of divine power, we'll also be severely injured. The loss outweighs the gain." After listening to his explanation, Chao Qingyu and Lan nodded to show that they understood. However, they did not know. In fact, there was a third reason that Ji Tianxing did not mention. Thirdly, Jing Feihong was Regent Lord Yunyang after all. He had the right to meet the ruler of the boundless heaven continent, the Azura God Emperor. The Azura God Emperor was above the gods, looking down on the entire boundless heaven continent with the attitude of an absolute overlord. He would not personally manage this continent, nor would he show himself easily. This was because the hundreds of region lords were his most loyal subordinates, helping him manage this continent. However, once a region lord fell or was killed, it would definitely alarm the Azura God Emperor. If the Azura God Emperor pursued the matter, Ji Tianxing, Chao Qingyu, and the rest would have nowhere to hide. Ji Tianxing had just recovered to the Divine King realm. His foundation was still shallow. He did not want to come into contact with the Azura God Emperor, much less be qualified to confront him head-on. Before he recovered to the pinnacle of the Divine King realm, he could only keep a low profile and endure as much as possible. This was the most crucial reason. In today's battle, I was able to successfully kill the soaring Wind Divine King. Both of you have contributed greatly, especially Lady Lan. Your performance was outstanding and worthy of praise." Ji Tianxing looked at Chao Qingyu and Lan, praising them with a smile. The husband and wife quickly bowed and replied humbly, "Young master is too kind. We were only following your instructions." Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "In the future, we'll encounter even more God King powerhouses, and we'll experience even more dangerous battles. This is dangerous and challenging for you, but it is also an opportunity and training. Only in actual battles of life and death can you quickly improve your cultivation base and abilities." Chao Qingyu and Lan nodded, indicating that they had learned something. "All right, we should go." Ji Tianxing raised his hand, indicating that Chao Qingyu could leave. Chao Qingyu quickly summoned the divine warship, and the three of them flew into it. Soon, Chao Qingyu steered the divine warship and flew across the sky, continuing to fly south. 100,000 miles away from here, at the entrance of Rakshasa Cave, the Rakshasa clan leader, high priest, and the rest detected that it was calm outside and guessed that the Divine King battle had already ended. Only then did they fly out carefully. Several powerhouses flew across the sky, crossing the vast ruins, wanting to fly south. Along the way, they released their divine senses to investigate the surrounding situation, searching for Ji Tianxing and Jing Feihong's figures. They wanted to know the result of the battle. Chapter 33-37. While searching the battlefield, the Rakshasa tribe and the others were feeling heavy-hearted. Today's incident was full of twists and turns, causing the Rakshasa tribe to suffer heavy losses. Not only were a large number of guards and deacons dead, but even a few elders were killed. These peak divine lords were also heavily injured by the aftermath of the Divine King's battle. In the end, they had even offended region leader Yunyang. Seeing the others' heavy mood and the depressing atmosphere, the high priest comforted them. "Don't worry, everyone. Although we've suffered heavy losses and won't be able to recover within 100 years, we still have some gains. At least, we've managed to get on the good side of Region Leader Tiger. That fellow's ability and methods aren't any weaker than Region Leader Yun Yang's. The Rakshasa leader glanced at him and said in a low voice, "Relying on external forces isn't as good as relying on ourselves. The divine lords we've lost can't be replenished for at least 200 years. Besides, we've offended Region Leader Yun Yang in this matter. Our future situation will be more difficult. Besides, that Region Leader Tiger's attitude is cold. He might not be reliable." The Great Guardian hurriedly nodded in agreement and said worriedly, "Previously, the Third Elder and his Imperial Guards followed the Region Lord and the Holy Maiden to protect and monitor them along the way. We didn't expect Region Leader Yun Yang to kill them instantly in the battle between the two Divine Kings. Even if we find Region Leader Tiger, no one can follow him and the Holy Maiden in this situation." Hearing this, the other two Guardians and the High Priest were even more depressed, growing more worried and anxious. Unknowingly, they had flown over 100,000 miles of ruins and arrived at the end of the battlefield. They had to stop in the sky and look around, discussing with gloomy expressions. "Strange, the battle is over. Why don't I see them? I wonder who won and who lost. Could it be that Region Leader Tiger was defeated and fled here in a hurry, and Region Leader Yun Yang went after him? That's very possible. Of course, it's also possible that Region Leader Yun Yang was defeated and Region Leader Tiger went after him. The four Divine Kings have disappeared. What should we do? Should we continue to search for Region Leader Tiger? Or should we return to Rakshasa Cave and wait patiently for 3 days?" Everyone was talking at once, but they couldn't make up their minds and were at a loss of what to do. In the end, it was the Rakshasa leader who made the final decision. Based on the current situation, those God Kings have definitely left. With our speed, it's impossible for us to catch up to them, let alone find them. Let's return to Rakshasa Cave first and appease our clansmen. I will also send a message to Region Ruler Yun Yang to sound him out and explain and apologize to him. Regardless of whether this is useful or not, and whether it can dispel his anger, we must show enough sincerity." The High Priest, the Great Guardian, and the others naturally nodded in agreement and followed the Patriarch back to Rakshasa Cave. The green jade divine warship sped through the sky like a bolt of lightning, heading south. Inside the divine battleship, Ji Tianxing stood in the middle of the hall and looked at Lin Shui, who was pacing back and forth anxiously. His lips curled into a smile. "What? Are you worried that we can't defeat Territorial Lord Yin Yang?" Hearing the voice, Shui Lin stopped and turned to look at Ji Tianxing. Seeing that he and Lan were both safe and sound, Shui Lin's hanging heart finally settled back into her stomach, revealing a gratified smile. "It's great that you're all right. Tianxing, are you hurt? Is it serious?" Seeing Ji Tianxing's messy hair and golden bloodstains on his white robe, Lin Shui Lin hurriedly asked. Shui Lin asked with concern. She quickly walked towards Ji Tianxing, wanting to check on his injuries. Lan retreated sensibly and said, "You guys talk, I'll go back to the secret chamber to heal myself." This was an excuse. She had only struck once after joining the battle and was not injured at all. How could she heal herself? She did not want to stay in the hall and wanted to give Ji Tianxing and Lin Shui a chance to be alone. She then left the hall in a flash and hid in the secret chamber 2 breaths later. The hall quieted down, leaving only Ji Tianxing and Lin Shui. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said with a chuckle, "It's only a superficial wound. You don't have to worry. With my ability and skills, Jing Feihong can't do anything to me." Lin Shui stopped 5 steps away from him, the worry in her heart dissipating. Seeing that he was proud and arrogant as usual, Lin Shui pursed her lips and said impatiently, "I know you've just broken through to the Divine King realm and your ability has increased tremendously. But you're a first-level Divine King, while Region Leader Yun Yang is a middle Divine King after all. If anything happens to you, all of us will be worried." Ji Tianxing frowned and said with a strange expression, "TSK, TSK, TSK. What's wrong with you today? Why have you suddenly changed and are so concerned about me? Let me tell you, previously in Rakshasa Cave, I pretended to be region leader Hu Che and said that I wanted to marry you in public. That was just a temporary measure. Before he could finish, Lin Shui interrupted him and said solemnly, I know all this. Don't worry, I won't take it seriously. Moreover, you're so average-looking, narcissistic, and so arrogant. I won't be tempted by you. I'm just grateful that you came to Rakshasa Cave to save me. I'm afraid that you'll get hurt because of me. I'll feel guilty if that happens. I don't want to owe you a favor. Ji Tianxing heaved a sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. I'm relieved that you think so. Lin Shui glared at him angrily, her brows furrowed. Ji Tianxing thought of something and changed the topic, saying, Initially, if Jing Fei Hong didn't appear, I could still take Luo Xie and a group of Imperial Guard marshals with me. When we leave Rakshasa Cave, Luo Xie and the rest will be at our mercy. You can also slowly torture and kill Luo Xie to appease the hatred in your heart. It's a pity that Jing Fei Hong was ruthless and accidentally injured Luo Xie and the Imperial Guard marshals, killing them instantly. Lin Shui nodded and said calmly, It's indeed a pity. However, it's already happened. Luo Xie has been reduced to ashes. My parents' revenge has been avenged. Ji Tianxing comforted her. The dead are gone. The living still have to be strong. You have to let go of this slowly. Actually, there was no need for him to comfort her. Lin Shui's emotions had already calmed down. After he finished, Lin Shui nodded to show that she understood, saying, Okay, you've fought a few battles. Not only are you injured, you must be tired. Quickly go and adjust your breathing. Ji Tianxing took a deep look at her, then said goodbye. Lin Shui watched him enter the secret chamber and stood there for a moment before turning to leave. Although she looked calm on the surface, her heart was heavy and complicated. She had already gotten the answer to her mother's background and experience in Rakshasa Cave. However, her father Lin Wufa's background and experiences were still unclear. Especially, what did Lin Wufa do in the Dharma sect? Why did he still bear the name of a traitor who betrayed his master? All these weighed on Lin Shui's heart, causing her to feel depressed. Chapter 33-38. The secret chamber was dimly lit and empty. There was only a pitch-black divine pagoda, half a foot tall, hovering in the air. Ji Tianxing had already entered the divine pagoda and returned to the distorted space and time. Swoosh! He flew through the colorful distorted space and landed under the crimson flame sacred tree. Yun Yao, Ji Ku, Bai Long, and the others were still focused on cultivating, desperately improving their strength. They had yet to fully refine the terrifying divine power he had released when he broke through to the Divine King realm. Ji Tianxing went to check on Divine King Yank. Yank was still sitting under the crimson flame sacred tree, still cultivating and healing. Only 2 months had passed in the outside world, but he had already cultivated under the sacred tree for more than 8 years. His divine body's injuries were basically healed. Only his soul's injuries still needed to be treated. Ji Tianxing reckoned that if he went into seclusion to recuperate for a few more years, he should be fine. When that time came, he would let Yank follow him. With Yank and Chao Qingyu by his side, he basically did not have to act personally no matter what trouble he encountered. Moreover, how cool would it be to have 2 divine kings as guards? At least in the boundless heaven continent, this was an extremely shocking force. After checking on Yank's situation, Ji Tianxing sat under the sacred tree and began to count his spoils of war. He had killed many Rakshasa divine lords in the previous battle. However, due to his identity and face, he would not pick up the divine lord's divine personas and spatial rings. The real reward was that he had obtained divine King Ling Feng's divine persona and spatial ring after killing him instantly. After all, he had recovered to the divine king realm. Only the divine personas of divine king experts, as well as monarch-level divine weapons, treasures, and resources, could pique his interest. Ji Tianxing first took out divine King Ling Feng's red spatial ring and checked the items inside. The result made his brows relax, and he was in a good mood. As Jing Fei Hong's assistant, God King Lingfeng managed Cloud Yang territory on behalf of Jing Feihong. Naturally, he had reaped countless benefits. Inside the dark red spatial ring, all sorts of cultivation resources and treasures were piled up into a mountain. Countless divine stones, gems, and monarch-grade materials were piled up into mountains. There were also all kinds of oddly shaped, nameless, and unknown treasures piled up into a small hill hundreds of meters high. In addition, there were also a few exquisite treasure boxes that contained several pieces of king-grade materials. Unfortunately, those materials were used to refine pills and craft talismans, and they weren't used to refine equipment. But to Ji Tianxing, this was still a huge fortune, which made him happy. He roughly estimated that the resources, treasures, and materials stored in the ring were worth more than 120 billion godstones. This was the majority of the High Wind Divine King's wealth. To a lower Divine King who had controlled Cloud Yang region for 10,000 years, this was a normal situation. Ji Tianxing transferred all the resources and treasures in the ring into his own interspatial ring. The king-grade materials for refining pills and crafting talismans were kept carefully by him for safekeeping. After checking the spoils, Ji Tianxing took out more than 20 pieces of Godhead fragments and began to refine them. After careful observation, he discovered that God King Lingfeng's Godhead fragments had fused more than 360 divine Tao laws. This result was within his expectations and was not unexpected. The vast majority of lesser godly kings have grasped more than 200 to 400 types of divine Tao laws. Someone like God King Lingfeng, who has reached the third level of the Divine King realm and mastered more than 360 types of divine Tao laws, can be considered above average. I reckon that the number of divine Tao laws Chao Qingyu has mastered is about the same as this guy. These thoughts flashed through Ji Tianxing's mind, and he could not help guessing. Before I recovered to the Divine King realm, I already mastered 310 types of divine Tao laws. Now that I've refined God King Lingfeng's Godhead fragments, I wonder how many divine Tao laws I can master? But one thing was certain. When he was at the first level of the Divine King realm, the number of divine Tao laws he had mastered would surpass God King Lingfeng. When he reached the third level of the Divine King realm, the number of divine Tao laws he had mastered would definitely surpass Regent Lord Yunyang, Jing Feihong. When he became a higher divine king in the future, the number of divine Tao laws he had mastered would definitely surpass his previous life, breaking through the 1,000 mark. Before long, Ji Tianxing held his breath and focused, beginning to cultivate and devour the Godhead fragments. As time passed, the Godhead fragments surged with boundless divine power, entering his body like a trickle. Divine patterns of divine Tao laws also gradually peeled off and disappeared from the fragments. Time passed quickly. Unknowingly, more than 6 months had passed. God King Lingfeng's Godhead fragments had all been refined by Ji Tianxing. This allowed his strength to increase greatly, and his divine Tao foundation became more stable. The biggest gain was that Ji Tianxing had seized 30 divine Tao laws from God King Lingfeng's 300 over divine patterns of divine Tao laws and successfully refined them. At this point, the number of divine Tao laws Ji Tianxing had mastered had reached an astonishing 340 divine Tao laws. It was natural. His strength had also risen along with the tide, increasing by about 50% compared to before. If he were to meet Jing Feihong again now, he had more than enough confidence to defeat him. However, it was still impossible to severely injure and kill Jing Feihong. After all, the Sword of Burial of Heaven had not recovered to king grade. After ending his cultivation, Ji Tianxing thought to himself, now that I've recovered to the Divine King realm, I should also look for king grade materials for weapon refinement and try to restore the Sword of Burial of Heaven to king grade. Otherwise, I'll still be at a disadvantage when I meet those intermediate divine kings again. The Sword of Burial of Heaven will always be a burden. After making up his mind, Ji Tianxing left the distorted space and returned to the secret chamber. He planned to find Chao Qingyu and ask where he could find king-grade materials for weapon refinement. After all, Chao Qingyu was more familiar with the boundless heaven continent and the surrounding regions of Tianbei region. More than half a year had passed in the distorted space and time, but only 4 days had passed in the outside world. Ji Tianxing stepped into the cockpit of the divine warship and saw Chao Qingyu operating the divine warship while adjusting his breathing. Although he had to operate the divine warship and could not cultivate in seclusion, he was not idle. However, he didn't stay idle either, not willing to waste time, still nurturing his divine Tao foundation. Seeing Ji Tianxing arrive, Chao Qingyu hurriedly stood up and bowed. Ji Tianxing waved his hand, indicating that he did not need to be so polite. He went straight to the point and asked, "Qingyu, I plan to look for some king-grade materials for weapon refinement to forge a king-grade divine weapon. You're more familiar with the nearby areas. Do you have any recommended secret realms or forbidden areas?" Chao Qingyu thought for a moment and revealed a troubled expression. He said, "Young master, king-grade materials for weapon refinement and alchemy have always been something that can only be encountered by chance. Although I know a few places where king-grade materials have appeared before, that was 10,000 years ago. I'm not sure what the situation is now. This kind of thing can only depend on fate and luck. Perhaps it will not be long before king-grade materials appear in the world." Ji Tianxing was already mentally prepared and was not surprised. He could only nod and say, "All right, let nature take its course." Chapter 33-39. Chao Qingyu continued to pilot the divine warship. Ji Tianxing left the cockpit and entered the hall. If there was nothing else, he planned to return to the secret chamber and enter the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Tower to continue cultivating. However, as soon as he walked into the hall, he saw a graceful purple figure standing by the window in the corner, looking at the sea of clouds flying outside the divine warship. That extremely charming and bewitching figure was Lin Shui. Ever since she awakened the Rakshasa bloodline and her appearance changed, her entire temperament also changed greatly. The current her preferred blood red and purple dresses, and her aura was even more bewitching. Of course, at this time, she was in a daze, quietly looking at the sea of clouds outside the window. No one knew what she was thinking. Cough, cough. Ji Tianxing pretended to cough twice and walked toward Lin Shui. He opened his mouth and asked, "It's such a good season. Why are you in a daze here instead of going into closed-door cultivation?" Lin Shui was immediately startled awake and turned her head to look at Ji Tianxing. She hurriedly collected her thoughts, and her expression returned to normal. She said in a calm tone, Nothing, it's just that I cultivated for too long previously and wanted to come out for a breather." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "I guess you must have just awakened the Rakshasa bloodline and just reached the 9th level Divine Lord realm. Even if you want to go into closed-door cultivation, you don't have a suitable cultivation method or divine ability, right?" Lin Shui was stunned for a moment and nodded, saying, "Indeed, the Rakshasa clan leader and the high priest did not teach me any cultivation method. Unfortunately, we're already far away from the Rakshasa cave and can't go back to ask them for cultivation methods." Ji Tianxing's smile became even more playful. He waved his hand and said, "If you really want to go into closed-door cultivation, why do you need to ask them for cultivation methods? You can ask me. As long as it's the Rakshasa race's top cultivation methods and divine abilities, I have all of them here. At least 1,000 divine abilities and consummate skills. You can choose at will, enough for you to cultivate for thousands of years." Shui Lin furrowed her brows and chuckled. "That's enough. I know you're knowledgeable and have a good memory. However, the Rakshasa race's top cultivation methods and divine abilities are the Rakshasa race's most precious treasures and secrets. It's already good enough that you have some understanding of it. How could you possibly know everything? Even if you're bragging, you can't be so far-fetched, right?" Ji Tianxing raised his chin and chuckled. "What? You don't believe me, right? Why don't we make a bet? If I can give you the Rakshas's top cultivation method and divine ability, you'll cultivate in seclusion and try your best to break through to the God King realm. Let go of your grudges as soon as possible and stop letting your imagination run wild. What do you think?" "This..." Shui Lin hesitated and said with a complicated expression, "You know you will lose for sure. What will you do if you lose? Ha ha. If I lose, I'll be at your beck and call. Tianxing laughed confidently and said in a mocking tone, However, how can I lose? Seeing him so confident, Xuelin was a little shaken. She suddenly thought of a possibility and couldn't help but ask, Previously, you hid in Rakshasa Cave for more than 20 days. During that time, I was awakening my bloodline in the blood pool. The two of you couldn't have snuck into the Rakshas's treasure vault and stolen their divine ability secret manuals, right? Tianxing pursed his lips and said, TSK, I don't care about those cultivation methods and divine abilities of the Rakshasa race at all. Why would I waste time to steal? Besides, the reason why I took away those cultivation methods and secret manuals was so that you wouldn't have to worry about them. I was helping the Rakshasa race so that their cultivation methods and divine abilities could be passed down and brought to glory in your hands. How can this kind of act of doing a good deed without leaving a name be called stealing? Xuelin could not help but roll her eyes and pursed her lips. At the end of the day, isn't it still stealing? I guess you're right. The Rakshasa race was unlucky to have met you and suffered heavy losses. After a moment of silence, she still bowed to Tianxing and said in a sincere tone, No matter what, you did this for me. Thank you. I'll remember this favor and double it in the future. Without waiting for her to finish, Tianxing waved his hand and interrupted her. He took out a large pile of jade slips from his interspatial ring and threw them to Xuelin. Walala. A total of more than 2,100 jade slips all flew in front of Xuelin and piled up together, emitting a dazzling divine light. These jade slips were old and new, and the materials were also different. However, from the aura fluctuations emitted by the many jade slips, Xuelin knew that they were not ordinary items. She casually picked up a few jade slips and used her divine sense to permeate into them and did a simple check. Immediately, she revealed a look of deep surprise. These are actually all king-level cultivation methods and divine abilities. The Rakshasa race actually has so many king-level cultivation methods and secret manuals. Tianxing, you emptied the Rakshasa race's treasure vault? Tianxing shook his head and said with a chuckle, Of these 2,100-plus cultivation methods and divine ability secret manuals, half of them are top-notch monarch cultivation methods, and the other half are king-level cultivation methods. These are the painstaking efforts of the Rakshasa race's powerhouses, covering tens of thousands of years of cultivation methods and ultimate skills. You don't have to cultivate all of them, just pick some that are suitable for you and of a higher level to cultivate. Xuelin was filled with excitement as she nodded quickly. I understand. Thank you so much. With so many cultivation methods and secret manuals, why should I worry about not breaking through to the Divine King realm? Now that a few days have passed, the Rakshasa race should have realized that their treasure vault has been robbed and these jade slips have been lost, right? I wonder how the Rakshasa clan leader and the high priest are feeling right now. After a while, Xuelin kept all 2,100 jade slips, leaving them for later study. Tianxing was silent for a moment before he asked again. We're now in the Chuyan Empire's territory. We'll leave the Yunyang region if we fly south for another 3 days. If I remember correctly, the Dharma sect is in the Chuyan Empire's territory, isn't it? Xuelin was stunned, asking with a complicated expression, Why did you suddenly think of talking about this? Tianxing glanced at her and said earnestly, Although the Rakshasa cave's matter has been settled, and the truth of your mother, Sha Yinzi's background and experience has been revealed, there's still some regret in your heart. But you still have some regrets in your heart. You still have a thorn in your heart. It's because of this that you've been feeling uneasy these days, unable to calm down and cultivate. That's why you're standing by the window, staring at the sea of clouds in a daze, isn't it? Xuelin turned to look at him, her emotions growing more complicated. She wanted to say something, but did not know where to start. Tianxing continued. Actually, you really want to go to the Dharma sect to investigate the truth of what happened back then and clear your father's name. This is your personal matter. You don't want to trouble me and Chao Qingyu and delay our time. However, with what happened before, you don't dare to leave without saying goodbye like last time. You're afraid that it'll be like last time, where we'll have to save you when you're in danger. That's why you've been standing by the window for so long without making up your mind, isn't it? Chapter 3340. Are you a worm in her stomach? You know her mind so well. Do you know that people like you who can read people's minds are sometimes very annoying? Lin Shui was a little touched, but she didn't want to admit it. She even rolled her eyes at Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing didn't take it seriously and continued. I know even if you don't say it. In your current state, you won't be able to calm down and cultivate without 10 days or half a month. In that case, we might as well solve the mystery and end this matter completely. Anyway, we're already in the Chuyan Empire and not far from the Dharma sect. How about it? This. Lin Shui was a little hesitant and couldn't make up her mind. Although Ji Tianxing was right, and she also agreed with Ji Tianxing's suggestion, but she was still a little worried and blamed herself. She thought to herself, I left without saying goodbye before and I was in danger. I've already been delayed for a month and even put Tianxing in danger. Although he's willing to help me, I have no complaints. But I can't take his kindness for granted and delay his trip again and again. It's just that my father still bears the name of a traitor who betrayed his master and ancestors. If I don't solve the mystery and clear my father's name, how can I leave with peace of mind? Do I have to leave without saying goodbye to Tianxing again like last time? No, he's already aware of my intentions. Once I do that, he'll be the first to find out. I can make a mistake once, but I can't make a mistake a second time. Otherwise, I'll be stupid. What should I do? Lin Shui was very conflicted. Ji Tianxing saw that she was silent and conflicted. He guessed her thoughts and asked, Are you afraid of delaying my trip? You want to go to the Dharma sect to investigate the truth, but you don't want to drag me down, so you want to leave without saying goodbye. But you also feel that it's too stupid to do such a stupid thing after just a few days. So, you still can't make up your mind? Hearing this, Lin Shui's body shook. She glared at him and muttered, You're getting more and more annoying. Is it that easy to see through my thoughts? Ji Tianxing nodded seriously. He pointed at her face and said, Isn't it written all over your face? Oomph. Shui Lin snorted angrily. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said calmly, All right, this matter is settled. Anyway, it won't take long. How can you leave with a clear conscience if you don't completely solve your problem? After that, he turned around and left the hall to inform Chao Qingyu. Chao Qingyu was more familiar with Tianbei region and Yunyang region, so he naturally knew where the Dharma sect was located. After all, the Dharma sect was one of the top forces in the Yunyang region and had been around for more than 20,000 years. Shui Lin was still hesitant and wanted to say something. However, Ji Tianxing's attitude was so firm and resolute that he didn't give her any chance to hesitate. She looked at Ji Tianxing's departing figure and could only swallow her words. A warm current flowed through her heart as she murmured to herself, Tianxing, thank you. Perhaps you're the one who understands me the most in this world. After a while, the Emerald Divine Warship changed its direction. Originally, the Emerald Divine Warship was going to pass through the southwest of the Empire of Chuyan and leave the Empire within a day. However, after the change of direction, the warship flew towards the center of the Empire of Chuyan, heading straight for Famine Mountain. Famine Mountain was located in the center of the Empire of Chuyan. It was surrounded by mountains and lakes for millions of miles, rich in divine power and resources. The Endless Mountain Range was one of the Empire of Chuyan's forbidden grounds. There were endless cultivation resources, but there were also countless beasts, mystical beasts, and divine beasts. There were also all kinds of hidden dangers. Without the ability of a divine lord, one would not dare to enter the area. There was a high chance that one would not return. Therefore, the Dharma sect was located in the depths of the mountain range, occupying Famine Mountain that was 10,000 meters tall. It was truly an otherworldly sect. The sect's disciples had an endless supply of cultivation resources, as well as various training grounds and secluded secret realms. In addition to the sect's inherited skills, as well as the guidance of master experts, the Dharma sect was naturally filled with talents. Although the Dharma sect was hidden deep in the mountains and forests, its disciples rarely came out. However, the Dharma sect had subdued dozens of second-rate forces and controlled the lifelines of dozens of divine nations. It had an enormous influence and intelligence network. In the entire Yunyang region, the Dharma sect's strength could be ranked in the top 5. It was an overlord that no expert dared to offend. A few hours later, the sun was setting in the west. The millions of miles of mountain range were shrouded in the dim, yellow sunlight, making it look hazy. Swoosh! The emerald divine warship tore through the sky like a bolt of green lightning, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Not long after, the divine warship arrived in the depths of the mountain range and gradually slowed down. Under the hazy sunset ahead, a giant mountain that was 3,000 feet tall and half hidden in the sea of clouds appeared. It was surrounded by thousands of feet-tall mountains that were covered in dark green forests, making the peak particularly eye-catching. In the cockpit of the divine warship, Chao Qingyu was steering the divine warship, while Ji Tianxing and Lin Shui stood behind him. Young master, the peak in front is Feynman Mountain. The Dharma sect is on the peak. From what I know, the Dharma sect's influence is profound. It controls dozens of forces and secretly controls the fate of dozens of divine nations. Even in the headquarters of Feynman Mountain, there are tens of thousands of disciples and servants. It can be said that experts are as common as the clouds. Chao Qingyu briefly introduced the Dharma sect situation. In fact, he and Ji Tianxing did not take it to heart. Lin Shui, however, frowned. She was obviously nervous and thinking about something. Ji Tianxing glanced at her and asked, "We're about to reach the Dharma sect. The truth you want will be revealed soon. What are you thinking about?" Lin Shui quickly collected her thoughts and said in a low voice, "Since we're here, we must find the answer successfully. We can't go back empty-handed and waste your time." Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "Of course." Lin Shui continued, "So, we can't be reckless. We must act cautiously and think of a detailed plan first. It's best if we have 2 or 3 backup plans. Then, we can discuss when and under what circumstances to implement it and how to cooperate." Obviously, Lin Shui was very careful about this matter. However, Ji Tianxing waved his hand and interrupted her. He smiled and said, "Okay, don't think about it so complicated. This matter is very simple. Don't think about any plan. We'll go with you and get the answer soon." "Ah." Lin Shui was stunned and said with a startled face, "You're going with me? You're going to swagger into the Dharma sect's mountain gate like this?" Ji Tianxing just smiled and did not answer. At this time, the divine warship had landed on the peak of Feynman Mountain and landed openly outside the mountain gate. Chapter 3341. The peak of Dharma Gate Mountain was a flatland with a radius of 100 miles. On this man-made flatland, there were hundreds of palaces of various sizes. They were all magnificent and dignified. Even a mountain gate of the Dharma sect was 100 feet tall. It was majestic and dignified, exuding the vicissitude aura of a top sect. More than 30 young disciples in gray robes and Dao crowns were divided into 2 teams. They guarded the mountain gate with solemn expressions. These young disciples were all above the 7th level of the celestial god realm. However, they were only the elites of the outer sect disciples. Only they were qualified to guard the mountain gate in turn. Only genius disciples who had broken through to the divine lord realm were qualified to enter the inner sect and receive personal guidance from the sect elders. There were only 6 or 7 middle-level divine lord disciples. They were the most outstanding young prodigies of the Dharma sect. Swoosh! With a flash of divine light, the green jade, divine warship, disappeared. Ji Tianxing, Chao Qingyu, and Lin Shui appeared at the mountain gate of the Dharma sect. The mountain gate was originally quiet. Apart from the disciples guarding the mountain gate, there was no one else. The sudden appearance of Ji Tianxing and the other 2 broke the silence and attracted the attention of many disciples. A tall and handsome young divine race member walked out of the team on the left. He carried a sword on his back and walked quickly to the mountain gate. After sizing up Ji, Tianxing, and the other two, he cupped his fists and bowed. He asked, "May I ask where you three seniors are from? What business do you have with our sect?" It was obvious. This young divine race member had good eyesight. Seeing that Ji, Tianxing, and the other two had an extraordinary bearing and unfathomable aura, he knew that they were three experts. He saw that Ji Tianxing stood in front with Lin Shui beside him. Chao Qingyu followed behind. He could guess that Ji Tianxing was the leader of the three and had the most distinguished status. The older and seemingly ordinary Chao Qingyu was Ji Tianxing's guard. Faced with the young divine race member's polite question, Lin Shui was a little hesitant. What identity should she use to deal with him? She had thought of several plans before, but she did not expect Ji Tianxing to be so straightforward and swagger to the mountain gate. This caught her off guard, and she did not know how to deal with him. Unexpectedly, without waiting for Lin Shui to reply, Ji Tianxing's expression was indifferent as he replied calmly, "Go and report to your sect leader that Lin Wufa's daughter, Lin Shui, has come to visit today." "All right, please wait for a moment, senior." The young god maintained a respectful smile. After bowing, he turned around and was about to report. However, just as he turned around, he suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed drastically. "Lin Shui, meet sect leader, Lin Wufa's daughter? Lin Wufa? Weren't they the ones who betrayed their masters and killed their ancestors?" Lin Shui of the sect gate of the divine, Lord Shui, slowly turned around, and when he looked at Ji Tianxing and Shui Lin again, his eyes became cold and serious. He stared at Ji Tianxing and asked in a serious tone, "Are you serious? Is the person beside you really Lin Wufa's daughter?" Ji Tianxing said with an indifferent expression, "It's absolutely true. Don't waste time. Go and report the news." Lin Shui was completely speechless. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. She thought to herself, "You are too rude and straightforward, aren't you? You directly said my father's name. Isn't this clearly showing that you are here to take revenge? Great. Now that we can't get the truth, a fierce battle is unavoidable." As expected, the young divine race member nodded and said coldly, "If that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. Men, take these three villains down." Following the order of the young god, more than 30 young disciples under the mountain gate took out their divine weapons and rushed over as fast as lightning. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the blink of an eye, more than 30 young disciples spread out and surrounded Ji Tianxing and the other two. Without waiting for the young divine race member to give the order, the crowd joined forces and used their ultimate skills to besiege Ji Tianxing and the other two. They cooperated very well and were very familiar with the moves. The power of their combined attack was not to be underestimated. However, it was useless. Ji Tianxing and Lin Shui looked at the crowd coldly and had no intention of helping. Chao Qingyu was also indifferent. His aura was as calm as an ancient well, and he seemed very ordinary. It was only when the light of the divine skills was about to engulf the three of them that Chao Qingyu raised his eyelids. An invisible divine power burst out from his body and spread out like a shockwave. Bang! Bang, bang, bang. With a series of muffled sounds, more than 30 young disciples were sent flying and vomiting blood. They landed 1,000 feet away. Half of the Dharma Gate mountain shook. The towering mountain range also shook violently for a long time. Fortunately, Chao Qingyu was merciful. The young disciples fell to the ground. Most of them were unconscious, but not dead. A small number of disciples who were still conscious also lost their fighting strength and let out painful groans. There were also people who cried out in alarm, roaring and shouting in anger. "Someone come quickly. Someone is trespassing. Someone come quickly and stop these three evildoers." Just as the young disciples were shouting, divine lights lit up in several palaces inside the mountain. At least 20 beams of dazzling divine light converged from all directions and landed at the foot of the mountain gate as fast as lightning. These were over 20 divine Lord Realm powerhouses. There were blue-robed inner court disciples, white-robed elite prides of heaven, and even several black-robed deacons. Among them, The ones with the highest status were two elders in purple robes. These two elders were in charge of the external affairs and punishment of the Dharma sect. They were usually busy and rarely had the chance to cultivate in seclusion. They were dealing with sect affairs just now and rushed over when they heard the commotion. The leader of the group was the punishment elder. He was an old man with a white beard. When he arrived at the mountain gate, he asked in a dignified tone, "What's going on? Who's trespassing?" A young disciple guarding the gate quickly answered, "Punishment elder. That woman is the daughter of the traitor, Lin Wufa. She brought two accomplices and came to seek revenge. She said she wants to see the sect leader." Hearing this, not only did the expressions of the punishment elder and the external affairs elder change drastically, even the many divine lord experts were stunned. After regaining their senses, they all showed expressions of righteous indignation and cursed angrily. Lin Wufa, that traitorous bastard who betrayed his master and ancestors? Lin Wufa's daughter dares to come to our sect for revenge? Is she crazy? That damned Lin Wufa. It's already a pity that he didn't die under our sect's punishment. Since his daughter came to seek revenge, we should capture her and kill her as a warning to others. Chapter 3342. Ji Tianxing and the other two had just reached the foot of the mountain gate when they were surrounded by more than 20 Sir Gods. The leaders were the sentencing elder and the external affairs elder. There were more than a dozen inner disciples in green robes, 3 elite disciples in white robes, and 6 deacons in black robes. The crowd was indignant as they discussed. They took out their divine weapons and pointed them at Ji Tianxing and the other two with murderous intent, especially towards Xuelin. Everyone's eyes were filled with hatred. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing looked at the two elders indifferently and said in a low voice, "We are here to find the sect master and ask him about the situation. If you know what's good for you, get out of the way." The external affairs elder frowned and said in an unfriendly tone, "Boy, who do you think you are? Do you think you are worthy to meet our sect master? Lin Wufa is a traitor to our sect, a scum who betrayed his sect. Since you are following his daughter, you are not a good person either." The sentencing elder stroked his white beard and said arrogantly, "Boy, you injured our disciples just now. Weren't you very arrogant and domineering? Now you want to explain your intentions and admit defeat to our sect? Let me tell you, it's too late. If you don't want to die, surrender obediently and wait for our sect to deal with you." After that, the sentencing elder waved his sleeves and ordered the Sir Gods, "Let go together and take them down." "Yes, sir." Many disciples, elites, and deacons said in unison. Everyone waved their swords and used all kinds of divine powers to besiege Ji Tianxing and the other two. Swoosh, swoosh. Hundreds of multicolored sword and saber lights poured down like a rainstorm, drowning the figures of Ji Tianxing and the other two. You don't know what's good for you. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing still had no intention of making a move. He shouted in a low voice with no expression on his face. The next moment, Chao Qingyu abruptly raised both of his hands. His palms separated and crossed as he released a vast amount of divine power. More than 20 gigantic golden palms shot out in all directions. Bang, 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 bang. A series of muffled sounds exploded, reverberating endlessly between heaven and earth. The various divine skills cast by more than 20 divine lords were immediately shattered by the giant golden palm. Fragments of divine light that blotted out the sky burst forth. The destructive shockwave also spread out in all directions, engulfing everything within a radius of 10,000 feet. None of the 20-odd Sir Gods were able to withstand the strike of the golden palm. All of them were sent flying backward with blood spewing out of their 7 orifices. The weaker inner court disciples only had the strength of a low-level divine lord. Their injuries were the most wretched. They all fell 1,000 feet away. Their faces were covered in blood, and they were dizzy. They had almost lost their ability to fight. The middle-level divine lord elite disciples and deacons had slightly lighter injuries, but they were still spewing blood from their noses and mouths, their divine power in chaos. Only the two upper divine Lord-level elders suffered slightly lighter injuries. However, they were also sent flying several hundred meters away. Their faces were covered in dust, and they looked extremely miserable. When the dust and divine light dissipated, everyone could clearly see the scene in front of them. Immediately, they let out cries of astonishment. "Oh my God, how could this be? Am I seeing things? Or am I seeing things? The two elders and deacons are actually... How is this possible? This is not good. A strong enemy has invaded. Quick, inform the other elders." The disciples who were still conscious exclaimed in disbelief as they fled into the mountain gate. Someone sent out a distress signal, someone sounded the alarm, and someone flew towards the main hall. Tianxing's cold gaze swept across the two elders and the scattered Sir God experts. He then walked towards the mountain gate. Behind the mountain gate was a wide square that occupied a radius of 10 miles. On the other side of the square was a lofty palace, and on both sides were houses. Seeing Tianxing and the other two stepping into the square, the elder in punishments and external affairs did not have time to treat their injuries. They hurriedly led a few deacons and genius disciples who could still fight to block their path. "Thief, don't even think about barging into our sect. Be ****starred. Don't be so arrogant. Even if we are no match for you, we will not yield." The two elders roared angrily as they took out their life-divine weapons and charged forward again. They had been careless previously. This time, they knew how powerful Chao Qingyu was, so they used all their divine skills. Scorching sun slash. Shocking storm. As the two elders roared, they released their divine skills that could destroy heaven and earth as they charged towards Tianxing and the other two. The few deacons and elite disciples in black robes also regrouped and used their divine skills, filling the sky with divine skill light shadows. In an instant, the entire square was enveloped by the divine light of 5 colors, making it dazzling. Tianxing and the other two were unmoved. They were still calm and collected. Stubborn. Chao Qingyu furrowed her brows as she coldly shouted. This time, when he raised his hands to use his divine skill, he used 50% of his strength. When his palms changed and overlapped, a mysterious divine seal was formed and released a terrifying power that could suppress heaven and earth. 9 green fist radiances the size of water tanks were condensed and blasted towards the two elders, the 7 deacons, and the elite disciples. Boom, 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 boom. Another series of earth-shattering explosions shook the entire Dharma Gate mountain violently. Such a shocking commotion naturally alarmed everyone in the Dharma sect. The fate of the sentencing elder, the external affairs elder, the deacons, and the elite disciples was self-evident. They were sent flying by the fist radiances and tumbled tens of thousands of feet away. While they were still in mid-air, they were bleeding from their 7 orifices. They were severely injured and their consciousness was blurry. Plop, plop. The deacons and the elite disciples fell into the ruins, causing dust to fill the air. However, they were unconscious and did not move. The two elders tried their best to stay conscious, but they kept vomiting blood and groaning in pain. They could not continue to fight. This result caused the two of them to be incomparably shocked and even feel despair. The two elders looked at each other and saw the fear and worry in each other's eyes. Damn it, we didn't even see how that guy attacked, and we were already severely injured. It's too scary. That guy just casually attacked, and more than 20 of us were severely injured. Just what level has his strength reached? The scariest thing is that the green-robed guard killed us all. Lin Wufa's daughter and the white-robed young man have not even made a move yet. How strong are they? It seems that not only do we need to alert all the elders and deacons, even the sect leader and the vice-sect leader have to come out. Otherwise, no one can stop them. The two elders communicated with each other using their divine sense. While they were shocked and worried, they did not forget to call out to the other elders and deacons. Tianxing, Lin Shui, and Chao Qingyu crossed the square and walked to the middle of the square. The number of guards, disciples, and deacons who heard the news had reached thousands. However, everyone was afraid of Chao Qingyu's terrifying strength and kept retreating. No one dared to make a move. Chapter 33:43. An invisible fear and mountain-like pressure enveloped everyone. More than 1,000 Dharma sect disciples and guards surrounded Ji Tianxing and company with swords and sabers, but no one dared to make a move. As Ji Tianxing and company continued to advance, they were forced to retreat. The three of them were getting closer and closer to the main palace at the edge of the square, and the pressure on everyone was increasing. After all, that magnificent main palace was very sacred and solemn. Usually, only when the sect master and deputy sect master held a meeting would the sect elders and deacons enter the main palace. Once Ji Tianxing and company stepped into the main palace or destroyed it, it would be a great humiliation to the sect master. That would be a great humiliation to the Dharma sect. It would also be a heavy blow to the morale and faith of the disciples. Fortunately, at the critical moment, more than a dozen Sir God experts arrived. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The dozen or so Sir God experts came from different palaces, but they all landed on the plaza. They had their backs to the main palace door, blocking the path of Ji Tianxing and company. The leader was a middle-aged man wearing a golden robe and a divine crown. This man was tall and burly, and his face was resolute, exuding a great majesty. His thick eyebrows and big eyes were as deep as the starry sky, containing vicissitudes of life experience and calm wisdom. Seeing this golden-robed man arrive, many disciples and guards on the square heaved a sigh of relief, their moods calming down. Many people exclaimed, discussing and cheering excitedly. Look, it's the sect master. Heavens! The sect master is usually in seclusion to comprehend divine techniques. If there's no major event, he won't show his face even once in 10 years. It's really because the strength of those three guys is too terrifying. This matter is too serious, forcing the sect master to show himself. It's not just the sect master. The deputy sect master, 2 protectors, and all the elders are here too. Now, all the experts of our sect are here. More than a dozen Sir Gods and 6 peak Sir Gods. Those 3 guys are dead for sure. Yeah, they don't even know where they are. How dare they come to our sect and behave so atrociously? They must be tired of living. More and more disciples and guards gathered around the square. Soon, the number of people had reached 3,000. In the middle of the square, there were more than 10 Sir Gods confronting Ji Tianxing and the other 2. They had become the hope of the entire Dharma sect. After all, the sect master and vice sect master, the left and right protectors, and the 9 elders were all here. Normally, the sect leader and the left and right protectors would not show up unless there were major events. Even the inner disciples and elite geniuses might not be able to see them. It was because of this that the disciples of the Dharma sect were filled with confidence and certainty when they saw that more than 10 powerhouses had arrived. Who are you? Why did you barge into the Dharma sect and injure our disciples and elders? The sect master of the Dharma sect frowned as he stared sternly at Ji Tianxing and the other 2. The vice sect master, who was thin and had a mustache, and several elders of different appearances also began to reprimand Ji Tianxing and the other 2. You people are really audacious. Do you know where you are? How dare you behave so atrociously here? Is the Dharma sect too low-key, or are you people too arrogant? For more than 800 years, no one has dared to barge into the Dharma sect like you. Boy, I advise you to kneel down and admit your guilt. You may have a chance to live. The words of the vice sect master and several elders were full of confidence and arrogance. Their voices spread throughout the square, making the thousands of disciples of the Dharma sect feel proud and complacent, as if they were watching a good show. So noisy. Ji Tianxing frowned unhappily. He did not have the patience to talk nonsense with the sect master and the others. He raised his right hand and motioned for Chao Qingyu to directly suppress everyone in the square. First, hurt the sect master and the others, and then slowly talk business with them. This was the most direct and effective way to talk. However, Chao Qingyu was about to make a move when Lin Shui stepped forward and stared at the sect master and the others. She said in a loud voice, "I am Lin Shui, the daughter of Lin Wufa. Although we have already stated our intentions, I will say this one last time. But I'll say it one last time. We came to the Dharma sect this time to find the sect leader and find out the truth of the matter." Lin Shui thought that since they were already like fire and water, she might as well be rude and unreasonable to the end. Of course, she had to make her intentions clear first, so that she would not fight a meaningless battle. Unfortunately, before she could finish her sentence, she was rudely interrupted. The sect master, vice sect master, left and right protectors, and several elders had just heard the 3 words Lin Wufa, and their faces changed dramatically, revealing a strong sense of indignation. "You are Lin Wufa, the traitor's daughter? Ha ha, you bitch. After being a traitor, you still have the face to come to the Dharma sect? You are simply courting death. There is nothing to say. Your father has committed a heinous crime, and he has yet to receive the punishment he deserves. You will pay for it." The vice sect master and several elders' angry shouts shook the entire square. Lin Shui swallowed her unfinished words and coldly stared at the sect master. She sneered and said, "I only came to find you to find out the truth of what happened back then. Looking at your attitude, you do not intend to talk properly?" The sect master's face was gloomy, and his tone was contemptuous. He shouted coldly, "We have nothing to talk about. Your father killed his master and betrayed his sect. This is a heinous crime, an unpardonable crime. In the face of ironclad facts, what else is there to talk about? You came to our sect to seek revenge and injured so many disciples, guards, and elders. This crime is unforgivable." After he finished speaking, he waved his right hand and issued an order. "Take them down, dead or alive." Seeing this scene, Lin Shui frowned and gritted her teeth in hatred. Ji Tianxing turned to look at her and chuckled. "I have already said that there is no way to talk calmly with this group of people. You have to beat them down first, then they will listen to you obediently." At the same time, the vice sect master, the left and right protectors, and several elders all took out their divine weapons and unleashed their full power, besieging Ji Tianxing and the other 2. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. 11 high-level divine lords used their trump cards at the same time, releasing divine light shadows that blotted out the sky. It was truly a terrifying scene. The entire square was shrouded in dazzling divine light, and the destructive fluctuations of divine power suppressed Ji Tianxing and the other 2. The disciples and guard around the square fled the square as fast as they could when they saw that a great battle was about to break out, so as not to be affected by the battle. When the sky full of divine light shadows fell and were about to drown Ji Tianxing and the other 2, Ji Tianxing, Chao Qingyu, and Lin Shui brazenly attacked and launched a counterattack. Sky-piercing finger. Ji Tianxing raised his palms and pinched his sword fingers. In an instant, 20 rays of dark golden divine light shot out and attacked the surrounding elders and protectors. Chao Qingyu and Lin Shui also used their ultimate skills to resist the besiegement. Chapter 33-44. Bang! Bang, bang, bang. Deafening muffled noises burst out one after another, forming a series. In the blink of an eye, the divine light pouring down from the sky was shattered by the 20 dark golden divine lights, bursting into endless divine light fragments. The terrifying divine power shock wave, wrapped in endless fragments, burst out in all directions. The attacks of the vice sect master and the left and right protectors were easily dispelled by Ji Tianxing. However, Chao Qingyu and Lin Shui's ultimate skills were unstoppable, and they took the opportunity to blast several elders and the left and right protectors. Puff! Bang bang! Boom boom boom! Several elders were blasted away, and while they were still in midair, they opened their mouths and spat out blood. 2 elders were strangled by the sword light, and blood spurted out all over their bodies as they smashed into the shattered ground. The left and right protectors were not spared, and were also blasted into the shattered square, sinking into the ruins hundreds of feet deep. Only the vice sect master was slightly injured, and, after being blasted back hundreds of feet, he barely managed to stand firm. The deafening loud noise and the smoke and dust that covered the sky gradually dissipated. The huge square was covered with spiderweb-like cracks, and there were more than a dozen deep pits. Even the few houses around the square were swept by the shockwave and collapsed on the spot, turning into a mess of ruins. The solemn and sacred main hall, whose defensive array was blasted, was also on the verge of collapse. This result shocked everyone once again. Not only the thousands of disciples and guards who were watching the battle from afar were dumbfounded, but they were also full of horror. Even the sect master, vice sect master, and protector elders were full of indignation and disbelief. How is this possible? The experts of our sect are gathered here, and we joined forces to besiege the three of them, but we were defeated. We've only exchanged a single blow, yet we've been heavily injured and defeated so miserably. I can't believe it. The strength of those three. How terrifying is it? It's over. So many of us can't beat them. I don't know if the sect master and vice sect master. At the same time that everyone was filled with shock, their hearts were also filled with fear and anxiety, and they revealed uneasy expressions. Ji Tianxing and the other two were safe and sound. They stood in the middle of the square and looked at the sect master indifferently. Do you still want to continue? Can we talk properly now? Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked the sect master. The sect master's eyebrows twitched violently, and his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He roared furiously. Bastard, are you trying to provoke and humiliate me? Our sect has been standing at Dharma Gate Mountain for tens of thousands of years and has never declined. Not only does it depend on the legacy of the sect, but more importantly, it is unyielding. At the same time, the sect master of the Dharma sect personally made a move. He took out a purple saber that was as wide as a bench and formed a divine art with both hands, releasing a violent divine power. Dark purple divine seals quickly formed in front of him. That purple divine saber that was more than 3 meters long had also accumulated an incomparably terrifying power, becoming incomparably violent and unstoppable. Heaven-shattering, single word. When the power accumulated to the limit, the sect master of the Dharma sect roared and controlled the purple divine saber to slash at Ji Tianxing. Swoosh! The purple divine saber released a shocking saber aura that was thousands of meters long and carried the power to destroy everything, slashing at Ji Tianxing's head. Chao Yu wanted to help. Ji Tianxing blocked the attack. However, Ji Tianxing waved his hand, indicating that he didn't need to help. Ji Tianxing looked at the saber aura descending from the sky and calmly raised his right hand, using a secret technique. Dragon Claw of the Sky. Swoosh! Endless golden light gushed out of his palm and condensed into a mountain-sized, dark golden dragon claw that grabbed at the shocking saber aura. Bam! In a muffled sound, the Dragon Claw of the Sky caught the shocking saber aura accurately. Then, Ji Tianxing raised his right hand. There was a crisp cracking sound as the Dragon Claw of the Sky crushed the shocking saber aura into pieces. The Dragon Claw of the Sky didn't seem to have consumed much energy and was still shining with terrifying power. Ji Tianxing waved his right hand, and the Dragon Claw of the Sky clenched into a fist and smashed down at the sect master of the Dharma sect. The Dragon Claw fell from the sky like a 10,000-mile mountain and like a meteor falling from the sky. Its power was extremely terrifying. The invisible and terrifying power suppressed the sect master of the Dharma sect, making it impossible for him to escape. Boom! In the next moment, the Dragon Claw of the Sky engulfed the sect master of the Dharma sect and slammed into the ruins. There was an earth-shattering explosion, and it spread for tens of thousands of miles. The entire Dharma sect mountain shook a few times, and a huge crack appeared on the mountain. The square with a 10-mile radius had completely collapsed and turned into a deep pit. Destructive shock waves erupted in all directions, engulfing the entire mountain peak. Immediately, the deputy sect master, the left and right protectors, several elders, as well as more than 3,000 disciples watching the battle, were all sent flying. Those upper-rank divine lords were still fine. They were just seriously injured and covered in blood. But those celestial deity realm disciples and guards ended up in a miserable state. The more than 1,000 people who were closer were blasted into dregs on the spot, splattering blood rain all over the sky. The other 1,000 over people were also seriously injured and fell unconscious in the ruins. Furthermore, the more than 20 palaces and residences around the square were all blasted into ruins, leaving only dilapidated walls and dilapidated walls. Ji Tianxing's punch virtually destroyed half of the Dharma sect. And the sect master of the Dharma sect, who was hit head-on by the dragon claw of the sky, was even more miserable to the extreme. He lay at the bottom of the 10,000-foot deep pit, hundreds of fractures all over his body. His entire person was flattened like a pancake. Fresh blood gushed out wildly, mixing with the soil and wrapping around his body, making him look especially wretched and miserable. Suffering such serious injuries, even if he was a peak divine lord, he was temporarily unable to fight anymore. Huff, huff, huff. The sect master of the Dharma sect panted violently, trying to climb up from the deep pit. He circulated his energy to suppress his injuries, wanting to recover to his original state. He looked up at Ji Tianxing above the ruins and roared in a hoarse voice. Boy, even if this seat can't beat you, this seat will never give in. Since ancient times, evil has never triumphed over good. Justice is in the hearts of people. This seat is not afraid. Ha! Ji Tianxing sneered mockingly. Evil has never triumphed over good. Justice is in the hearts of people. It seems that you are still stubborn and don't want to talk properly, right? This king will give you one last chance. Tell me what happened to Lin Wufa back then and the specific process. Otherwise, this king will kill you now and destroy the entire Dharma sect. At the same time, Ji Tianxing stared at the sect master of the Dharma sect, checking his expression and emotional fluctuations. Of course, the vice sect master, the left and right protectors, and several elders were also within his surveillance range. Not only did he want to force the sect master to tell the truth, but he also wanted to use the reactions of the protectors and elders to determine the truth and find clues. The sect master of the Dharma sect roared angrily. The process of what happened back then, the disciples and elders of the Dharma sect all know. Why is there a need to repeat it? The matter of Lin Wufa deceiving his master and ancestors was witnessed by everyone. It is an ironclad fact. What else is there to say? Even if you kill this seat, the facts will not change. Hearing this answer, Ji Tianxing was a little disappointed, because the sect master's eyes, emotions, and aura were not the least bit abnormal. Although the vice sect master, the left and right protectors, and several elders were seriously injured and were even on the verge of death. But they were also filled with righteous indignation and did not have the slightest objection to this matter. From everyone's reaction, Ji Tianxing could basically judge that the sect master of the Dharma sect was telling the truth. Could it be that Lin Wufa really deceived his master and ancestors, but Lin Shui was unwilling to believe it? This thought flashed through Ji Tianxing's mind. Suddenly, his divine sense detected that in the ruins thousands of feet away, there was a purple-robed elder with an abnormal expression and a strange aura. Ji Tianxing suddenly revealed a playful sneer. Finally, someone gave the game away. Chapter 3345. The reactions of the sect leader, vice sect leader, left and right protectors, and a few other elders were the same. They obviously believed that Lin Wufa was a traitor who had betrayed his master. However, Ji Tianxing was surprised to find that the elder 3,000 meters away, who was further away, had a rather strange expression on his face. Most importantly, the short, fat, round-faced, middle-aged elder's aura was also very unstable. Thus, Ji Tianxing decisively used his capturing technique and sent out a giant golden palm to grab the purple-robed elder. Swoosh! The The purple-robed elder was unsettled and heavily injured. Before he could recover, the golden palm had already wrapped around him. In the blink of an eye, the purple-robed elder was captured and brought in front of Ji Tianqing. "You, what do you want?" In his panic, the plump purple-robed elder struggled with all his might and questioned Ji Tianqing in a threatening manner, while cowardly at heart. The sect master, the vice sect master, and the others also showed a puzzled expression. Their eyes were focused on the purple-robed elder. Everyone was very puzzled. What was Ji Tianqing trying to do? Ji Tianqing was expressionless as he stared at the purple-robed elder. He asked in a low voice, "Your name and position?" Why should I tell you?" The purple-robed elder was afraid, but he did not show it on his face. He straightened his neck and asked back. Ji Tianqing did not say anything as he raised his right hand and chopped down. "Gotcha!" With a crisp sound, the purple-robed elder's right arm was chopped off. Blood splattered everywhere. The heart-wrenching pain caused the purple-robed elder's body to shake violently as he let out a painful roar. Seeing this scene, the 10,000 Laws sect master, vice sect master, left and right protectors all roared with anger. "You beast! Come at us if you have the guts. Don't make things difficult for the fourth elder. Bastard who deserves to be hacked to death. How vicious you are! Right is right. Wrong is wrong." Lin Wufa betrayed his teacher and ancestors first, and then betrayed the sect. Even if thousands of years have passed, we will never forgive him. Even if you are strong, we will not submit to you. We would rather die than be humiliated by you. At the same time, the crowd roared angrily. Ignoring their own injuries, they fearlessly rushed forward and surrounded Ji Tianqing and the other two. There were even a few elders who stepped forward to protect the fourth elder. Seeing this, the sneer on Ji Tianqing's face became even more mocking. He. I didn't expect the people of the Dharma sect to be so united." The sect master's face darkened as he angrily shouted, "Of course. Otherwise, how do you think our Dharma sect could survive for tens of thousands of years?" Ji Tianqing grinned coldly. "That's right. I can see that you have a clear conscience and are sincere and united. However, there were all kinds of birds in the forest. With so many people in the sect, it was inevitable that there would be some scum. You have a clear conscience, but that doesn't mean that some people can stay out of it. In the end, don't be kept in the dark and become someone's target." Ji Tianqing's words had a hidden meaning. The people present were not stupid and naturally understood it. Suddenly, the sect master, deputy sect master, and the left and right protectors glared at Ji Tianqing. "Bastard, are you trying to sow discord between us? Don't try such a cheap trick in front of us. Do you think we're so easy to sow discord? We will always believe in each other and be united forever." Seeing so many powerhouses united, Ji Tianqing sneered and clapped his hands. Clap, clap, clap. What a touching trust and unity. "Unfortunately, you are all too ignorant." As he spoke, Ji Tianqing stared coldly at the fourth elder, releasing an invisible pressure. The fourth elder avoided Ji Tianqing's eyes and did not dare to look directly at him. His body was trembling, and his emotions were fluctuating. He could not calm down. The sect master, the vice sect master, and the left and right guardians were filled with righteous indignation. They roared with heroic spirit, "Thief! Cut the crap. If you want to kill us, just come at us. Whether we win or lose, whether we live or die, we will not frown. Even if we all die here, we will not surrender to you, and we will not confuse right and wrong." Seeing this, Chao Qingyu realized where the problem lay and focused her attention on the fourth elder. Lin Shui's expression and emotions were very complicated. She could not make up her mind and guess what the truth was. Although she believed that her father, Lin Wufa, would not do such a thing. But the attitude of these powerhouses in front of her was so firm and decisive, and they did not fear death at all. This caused her will to waver a little. Ji Tianqing was still strong, and his aura was getting colder and colder, and his killing intent was bursting. He looked at the crowd coldly and said in a cold voice, "Very good. I am very touched that all of you are so united, advancing and retreating together. Since that is the case, I will fulfill your wish. Today, I will kill all of you and destroy the entire Dharma Mountain. I will let all of you die with the Dharma sect. Right or wrong, and what the truth is, it does not matter to me. I will kill all of you, and everything will be gone. As he said this, he slowly raised his palms, and the brilliant 5 colors divine light accumulated in his palms. His whole body also burst out with invisible divine power, covering the entire Dharma mountain and suppressing the heaven and earth. It was extremely violent. Suddenly, sand and stones flew between heaven and earth, and dark clouds rolled in the sky. An aura, as if the world was about to be destroyed, descended from the sky and enveloped everyone. Unparalleled pressure and fear filled everyone's heart. Not only the sect master, deputy sect master, and the left and right protectors were frightened. Even the thousands of Dharma sect disciples and guards were full of despair, and their faces were gloomy. They saw that the 2 balls of divine light accumulated in Ji Tianxing's palms were constantly increasing in power and would explode at any time. None of the many powerhouses present could resist or resolve it. Dharma Mountain was in danger, and the Dharma sect was bound to be destroyed. Ji Tianxing's attitude was so ruthless that no one doubted his determination. Even Chao Qingyu and Lin Shui were affected by his domineering aura, and they secretly muttered in their hearts, "Young master is really angry. He won't really destroy Dharma Mountain, right? Tianxing, for me, he wants to destroy the entire Dharma sect without distinguishing between right and wrong. Although I'm very touched, this wasn't my intention." Even Chao Qingyu and Lin Shui were convinced, and the sect master and the others were full of despair, feeling extremely conflicted. After hesitating and weighing for a while, the sect master finally made a difficult decision. "Stop!" He suddenly shouted angrily, interrupting Ji Tianxing, and said in a low voice, "Young man, let's talk things out. I admit that you have surpassed the divine monarch realm and should be a supreme powerhouse in the divine king realm. Our sect does not dare to go against the divine king powerhouse, and I can't let the foundation that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years be destroyed in my hands. As long as you let go of the Dharma sect, we can talk things out. If you have any doubts, I can explain it to you clearly." Chapter 33:46. In the face of absolute power, the sect leader had no choice but to admit defeat. Righteousness, dignity, and integrity were important, but the lives of thousands of people were even more important. The sect's tens of thousands of years of heritage was more important than their lives. Therefore, sect master Wanfa could only open his mouth and beg Ji Tianxing to be merciful. The vice sect leader, the left and right guardians, as well as the elders, were filled with grief and humiliation, and their bodies were trembling with anger. However, they did not object. They could understand and agree with the sect leader's actions. After all, they were the higher-ups of the sect. Their personal lives were not important. They had to consider the big picture. The sect leader's reaction was within Ji Tianxing's expectations. The corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile as he slowly withdrew the dazzling divine light between his palms. He raised his right hand and pointed at the evasive 4th elder. He said in a serious tone, "Although you have a clear conscience, I feel that you have been kept in the dark. The 4th elder must know something. Why don't we listen to him and hear the truth?" Seeing that Ji Tianxing had finally removed the destructive light, the sect leader and the protectors breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, everyone's eyes were focused on the 4th elder. They revealed complicated expressions. No one was a fool. In this situation, everyone could see that the 4th elder was just trying to keep calm. In fact, his mind was in a mess. It was very abnormal, so much so that the protectors and elders did not speak up to defend him. Everyone was silent. The atmosphere was a little heavy. The 4th elder was flustered. He looked around and quickly waved his hand. "Why are you all looking at me? I don't know anything. It has nothing to do with me." The more he tried to hide it, the more guilty he seemed. The vice leader, the left and right protectors, and the elders all felt that something was wrong. The sect leader stared at him and said sincerely, Changyu, you had the best relationship with the third elder back then. You were also the most familiar with Lin Wufa. In all fairness, before Lin Wufa killed the third elder, he was also respectful to his master. Furthermore, Lin Wufa was one of the most talented disciples in the sect. Normally, he did not commit any misdeeds. If not for the fact that the third elder was killed by him, we would find it hard to believe that Lin Wufa would kill our master. We don't know much about this. Perhaps you know more about it. If you know any secrets or details, why don't you tell me? The sect master spoke tactfully, but Ji Tianxing, Chao Qingyu, and Shui Lin all understood what he meant. Shui Lin was hesitant before, but now she was determined. She shouted in her heart, I was right. I knew it long ago. With my father's character, how could he possibly betray his master? There must be something going on here. My father must have been wronged. However, the fourth elder shook his head vigorously. Then he said in a resolute and decisive tone, I don't know any details, and I don't have any secrets to tell you. Lin Wufa had killed his teacher. This was something that was obvious to all. What else was there to doubt? Don't ask me, I don't know anything. The sect master sighed silently. Obviously, he was a little disappointed. However, he did not show it on his face. Instead, he said earnestly, Changyu, you have to be clear about the sect's current situation. Do you want to watch the sect's tens of thousands of years of foundation be destroyed in our hands? This was a very obvious hint. However, the fourth elder was stubborn and insisted that he did not know anything. Before he could finish, Ji Tianxing raised the saber again and slashed out a ray of divine light. Kacha! Another crisp sound rang out. The fourth elder's left arm was chopped off. Blood splattered everywhere. The intense pain caused Changyu to tremble all over. He could not help but let out a painful roar. Ji Tianxing said expressionlessly, You can choose to hold on, but I will let you know what a heinous torture is. I will make you regret being born into this world. Even if you don't confess, it doesn't matter. After I kill you, I will refine your divine soul and deprive you of your memories. Then the truth will be revealed. The fourth elder's body suddenly trembled. His eyes widened, and he was full of horror. You are so vicious. Ji Tianxing raised his palms indifferently. Golden divine light gushed out of his 10 fingers and condensed into 10 sharp blades. He slowly stretched them toward the fourth elder. Before the sharp blades reached his body, the extremely sharp aura caused the fourth elder's skin to crack and blood to gush out. He was so scared that his liver and gallbladder were cracking. He only felt that his whole body was cracking, as if he was being cut into pieces. Although Ji Tianxing was torturing the fourth elder to extort a confession. However, the sect master, the vice sect master, and the left and right protectors only watched silently and did not open their mouths to stop or curse. No, go away. I don't know anything. Why are you forcing me? The fourth elder struggled with all his might, desperately dodging the golden light blades. He roared like a madman. However, he was firmly held by Ji Tianxing and could not escape. Seeing the 10 sharp golden blades getting closer and closer, they began to cut his body and head. Soon, his will was shaken and disintegrated. Bastard, why are you not helping me? Why don't you believe me? We are all from the Dharma sect. This bastard is a demon. You have to help me. The sect master and the others looked embarrassed. They were also very conflicted. However, they were powerless and did not dare to stop Ji Tianxing. They could only turn their heads. Along with the continuous sound of chi-chi-chi, the fourth elder's skull, body, and limbs were all cut by the golden blades. Blood spurted out. The sharp blades of divine light rubbed against the divine bones, making a teeth-numbing sound. Blood splattered everywhere, splashing on the bodies of the elders and the protectors and soaking their clothes. The fourth elder was enduring unparalleled pain and fear. He could not hold on any longer and finally collapsed. Spare me. Don't kill me. I will tell you everything. The third elder was not killed by Lin Wufa. Suddenly hearing those words, the 10,000 laws sect master and the several elders and protectors all trembled, revealing expressions of deep astonishment. including Lin Shui. They could not help but exclaim and question. How could this be? If it was not Lin Wufa, then who killed him? Fourth Elder, you were the first to discover that the third Elder had been killed. What happened? Yes, you were the first to discover that the third Elder had been killed and that Lin Wufa was running away covered in blood. After you sent out the signal, everyone arrived in time and saw Lin Wufa running away. Ji Tianxing's torture did not stop. The fourth Elder was still suffering from pain and suffering. As he gasped for breath, he shouted hoarsely, "It was not Lin Wufa. It was me. I have been plotting for many years. I killed the third Elder. I framed Lin Wufa." As soon as he said this, everyone was shocked. Everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. Chapter 33:47. Fourth Elder Chang Yu's psychological defense had collapsed. Under the terrifying pressure and torment, he was forced to reveal the truth. Thus, he had nothing to hide. Under everyone's questioning and angry rebuke, he told the whole story intermittently. It turned out that the matter was more complicated than everyone thought. Of course, the cause of the matter was relatively conventional, and it was also very common among many sections. 10,000 years ago, Chang Yu and the Third Elder were both young geniuses of the Fallen Leaves Divine Kingdom. The two came from the same Divine Kingdom and had the same talent, qualifications, and ideals, so they became friends early on. They came to Dharma Mountain together, passed the Dharma Sect's assessment, and entered the Dharma Sect at the same time. The two were like brothers, entering the sect together, cultivating together, training together, encouraging and learning from each other. However, the two's talent and qualifications were similar, but the treatment they received in the Dharma sect was completely different. The Third Elder was handsome, free and easy, and righteous. He was very trusted by his fellow sect brothers and sisters, and also received the attention of the deacons and elders. But Chang Yu's appearance was average, and his personality was eccentric. He basically had no friends and was often neglected and ignored. Seeing the Third Elder constantly getting better treatment, more cultivation resources, and the support of the deacons and elders, Chang Yu's heart began to feel unbalanced. The faster the Third Elder's progress was, the more dazzling his halo was, and the more jealous he was. Especially, Chang Yu had always been secretly in love with a genius female disciple in the inner sect, and that woman turned a blind eye to him, but was very fond of the Third Elder. The two often went in and out together, like a golden boy and jade girl, receiving the blessings of many fellow sect brothers and elders. In Chang Yu could only be dejected, suffering defeat everywhere, and hide his admiration deep in his heart, not daring to show the slightest bit. Because he felt that he was suppressed by the Third Elder's halo everywhere, and he was like an ugly toad, not worthy of that proud daughter of heaven at all. But in his heart, he felt that the Third Elder was the same as him, not much stronger than him, and was not qualified to touch that proud daughter of heaven. Greed was the original sin, and so was jealousy. If one wanted something but could not get it, it would give birth to an extreme heart. Jealousy, but did not dare to show it. Accumulating over time, it would accumulate into hatred. As a result, Third Elder and that proud daughter of heaven became the people Chang Yu hated the most. 7,000 years ago, the three of them had become the most elite disciples of the Dharma sect. In the process of going out for training, the three of them entered an ancient mystic realm to search for the ruins of a peak divine lord. Third Elder and that woman were deeply in love with each other, and they didn't hide anything in front of Chang Yu. It was as if they were a pair of Taoist companions. Chang Yu was mad with jealousy. The hatred and anger that had been suppressed in his heart for many years finally erupted. He tricked the Third Elder and the woman into moving separately, tricking the woman into a desperate situation. When that woman was heavily injured and on the verge of death, he showed himself and ruthlessly humiliated her before killing her with his own hands. Then, he prepared to murder the Third Elder. He had already thought it through. Even if he killed the Third Elder and that woman, he could say that the two of them had met with danger in the mystic realm. Even if the sect investigated, he could still shirk responsibility. Unexpectedly, the third elder was blessed with good fortune. Because of this small incident, he actually didn't step into danger. After the plan failed, Chang Yu and the third elder left the mystic realm and returned to the Dharma sect. The death of that genius female disciple was also said to be caused by the danger of the mystic realm and had nothing to do with Chang Yu. Even the third elder had always trusted Chang Yu and didn't suspect him at all. But this was not the end. More than 200 years later, the third elder was the first to become a divine lord and was conferred the position of elder. From then on, the third elder was even more valued and cultivated by the sect. But Chang Yu was still neglected and was not liked by the sect master, deputy sect master, and protectors. Seeing the third elder walk out of his pain and recover his limitless glory, respect, and popularity, Chang Yu's hatred was ignited again. By chance, he learned that the third elder had coincidentally obtained a secret manual of a divine technique. That technique was very profound. If one cultivated it to the great accomplishment realm, he would definitely become a peak divine lord. In addition, at that time, the sect master and the left and right protectors valued the third elder greatly. Everyone reached a consensus that after the third elder became a peak divine lord, he would be appointed as the deputy sect master. There was even hope that he would take over the position of sect master in the future. When Chang Yu heard this, he was even more jealous. Years of accumulated jealousy and hatred made him furious and murderous. He began to plan how to get rid of the third elder, seize his secret manual, and replace it. After more than 30 years of planning and preparation, he set his sights on the third elder's disciple, Lin Wufa. At that time, Lin Wufa was the third elder's only disciple. Like the third elder, he was talented and radiant. His future was limitless. So at the right time, Chang Yu decisively made his move. The third elder trusted him and had always treated him as a brother. He didn't guard against him. Because of this, he successfully assassinated the third elder and pushed the blame to Lin Wufa. At that time, Lin Wufa was still young and didn't notice anything strange. He also didn't expect his master to be killed. He entered the secret chamber in a daze and saw the third elder's broken body lying lifelessly in a pool of blood. Even his godhead was shattered. Just as he was struck by lightning and filled with shock and grief, Chang Yu appeared. Without any hesitation, Chang Yu concluded that Lin Wufa killed the third elder and called for help. Lin Wufa, who was emotionally unstable, didn't react. The alarmed sect leader, deputy sect leader, and a few other elders rushed to the secret chamber. Everyone saw with their own eyes that the third elder was dead, lying in a pool of blood. Lin Wufa stood in the pool of blood, holding a bloody divine sword in his hand. In addition, Chang Yu insisted that Lin Wufa killed the third elder. Just like that, Lin Wufa became a traitor who betrayed his master and killed his master. He didn't have a chance to defend himself. He was immediately captured by the angry elders and killed on the spot. At the critical moment, Lin Wufa used the teleportation array in the secret chamber to escape the Dharma sect. Chang Yu and the other elders wanted to chase after him, but it was too late. Lin Wufa's crime of betraying his master and killing his master was confirmed. Chang Yu's confession was over. The truth was revealed. The sect leader, deputy sect leader, left and right protectors, and the other elders all had ugly expressions. They were shocked and angry. After a long time, the sect leader sneered with a gloomy face. No wonder Lin Wufa didn't know what to do and couldn't defend himself, because he didn't know what was going on and couldn't guess who the murderer was. How could he defend himself? The deputy sect leader shouted angrily, "Chang Yu, you bastard! You're worse than a dog. You're the real culprit. You're the villain who deserves to die." Lin Shui's face was full of tears. She held her cheeks with both hands and sobbed. "Father, I didn't guess wrong. You've really been wronged. Now, you've finally been vindicated, and you can go down in broad daylight." Book Guesthouse Reading Website. Chapter 3348. After Chang Yu confessed, Ji Tianqing removed the golden light giant palm and no longer captured him. Plop, Chang Yu, who was drenched in cold sweat, fell to the ground powerlessly, as if he had no bones. He was still lying on the ground, his entire body twitching and trembling. Clearly, he had not woken up from the extreme pain and fear yet. Seeing him like this, everyone was secretly shocked, becoming more and more in awe of Ji Tianxing's means. Logically speaking, Chang Yu is also a high-ranked divine lord. Even if his divine body was tortured, he should not be so terrified, right? Yeah, his physical body being cut and crushed, it's undoubtedly extremely painful, but how could Chang Yu's will collapse? He's not that weak. Did you all see it? Not only was Chang Yu's body tortured, his divine soul also suffered tremendous torture. That's why he was terrified to such an extent before he was willing to confess the truth. You mean to say that that guy not only used torture to torture Chang Yu, but also used a divine soul mystic art to torture Chang Yu's divine soul? If that's the case, why didn't we detect divine soul undulations? This is also too powerful, right? The elders and enforcers were secretly sizing up Ji Tianxing and discussing with each other through voice transmission. Sect Master Myriadarma's mood calmed down and raised his hand to signal everyone to be quiet. The gazes of many protectors and elders gathered on him. Everyone knew that the sect master had something to say to Ji Tianxing and Lin Shui. Sure enough, sect master Myriadarma looked at Lin Shui with a face full of guilt and said in a sincere tone, "Miss Lin Shui, regarding your father's death, we deeply regret it. Before this, for a full 2,000 to 3,000 years, your father had been suffering injustice, bearing the infamy of deceiving his master and destroying his ancestors. Although this matter was caused by the evil disciple Chang Yu's conspiracy. But as the sect master, protectors, and elders, we also have an unshirkable responsibility for not investigating the truth of the matter. Regarding this, Sect Master Myriadarma owes you and your father an apology." In front of everyone, Sect Master Myriadarma admitted his mistake and apologized to Lin Shui and bowed at the waist. When the deputy sect master, the left and right protectors, and several elders saw it, they also hurriedly followed and bowed to apologize. If it were anyone else, they would most likely be overwhelmed by this favor and feel extremely moved. But Shui Lin was very calm, without any joy or excitement. She coldly looked at the sect master and the others bowing and apologizing with a cold smile on her face. After everyone bowed and apologized, she opened her mouth and said, "It's only right for you to admit your mistakes and apologize. You even made my father bear the infamy of deceiving his master and destroying his ancestors. Even after his death, he still couldn't wash away this injustice. Compared to what you have done, today's salutations and apologies are nothing." The sect master didn't deny it. He nodded and said sincerely, "Miss Lin, you're right. Your father has been wronged for 3,000 years. It's not something that can be compensated by our apology. We understand your feelings and are willing to do our best to compensate you. If you have any requests, feel free to tell us. As long as we can do it, we will not refuse." Hearing the sect master's words, the vice sect master, the left and right protectors, and several elders were somewhat surprised. Everyone looked at each other and felt that something was amiss. They hurriedly discussed it through voice transmission. What is the sect master trying to do? Even if Lin Wufa was wronged, now that the injustice has been cleared, the sect master doesn't have to be so courteous to her, right? Didn't you hear what the sect master said? As long as she asks, the sect master will do his best to compensate her. This is no longer courteous, it's generous. I guess the sect master's attitude towards Lin Wufa's daughter is not only to settle the matter peacefully. He also wants to use this opportunity to bury the hatchet with Miss Lin and gain her trust and favor. What? Does the sect master still have feelings for Miss Lin? Isn't this too ridiculous? What are you thinking? The sect master wants to keep Miss Lin in our sect. That's right. This Lin Shui is very young, and her talent and strength are also top-notch. If she can stay in our sect, our forces will grow even stronger. Not only is Lin Shui a genius, the white-robed youth's strength is even more terrifying. You should be a divine king master. Think about it. If we can keep Lin Shui, won't we have a good relationship with the divine king? With the help of the divine king master, why would our sect not be able to dominate the Cloud Yang region? I see. The sect master is indeed far-sighted and ingenious. We can't compare to him. The discussions of the vice sect master, protector, and elders were not without reason. The sect master did have such thoughts. Although everyone was unhappy and even fought, the sect master was still in good mood. As long as the follow-up matters were handled properly, it was not impossible to mend their relationship and win the favor of Lin Shui and Ji Tianxing. Lin Shui looked at the sect master deeply and then shifted her gaze to Changyu. This person is the main culprit. He committed crimes and caused a series of tragedies. He is unforgivable and unforgivable. Changyu had calmed down and was much more clear-headed now. He sat on the ground with a hopeless expression on his face. His heart was filled with despair. Hearing Lin Shui's cold voice, he did not react. He still lowered his head and panted, allowing the blood to flow on the ground. The sect master nodded and said in a low voice, "Miss Lin is right. A life for a life, a debt must be repaid. This is a matter of heaven and earth." Changyu murdered his fellow sect members and framed Lin Wufa. His thoughts are vicious and his methods are cruel. His death is not to be regretted. After that, the sect master looked around and announced in a dignified tone, "Our sect has been passed down for tens of thousands of years and is still prosperous today. What we rely on is sincerity and unity, and fair rewards and punishments." Changyu killed his fellow sect members. His actions are so vicious that it makes one's hair stand on end. Today, I will personally enforce the sect rules and clean up the sect. I hope all disciples will remember this in their hearts and take it as a warning. As his voice fell, the sect master held the divine sword and slashed at Changyu with great force. Changyu suddenly woke up and looked at the sect master in horror. He screamed in horror, "No, you can't kill me. I am loyal to the sect master. I have worked hard even if I didn't make any contributions." As he screamed, Changyu desperately retreated and tried to escape. However, Chao Qingyu released an invisible divine power and firmly suppressed him. The vice sect master, the left and right protectors, and several elders also blocked Changyu's escape route. Changyu had nowhere to run and could only watch helplessly as the divine sword slashed down on his head. Swoosh! Cold light flashed and blood splattered. Changyu's neck was cut off on the spot. His head flew into the sky and blood spurted out from his neck. Of course, for a high-ranked divine lord, even if his head was cut off, it was not fatal. It was just that his divine body was destroyed. Changyu's head was still in midair when the sect master slashed again and split it in half. Crack! This time, not only did flesh and blood splatter, but Changyu's divine spark was also smashed into pieces. A dozen divine spark fragments fell out. Changyu was executed on the spot. Chapter 3349. The sect master had personally killed Changyu, which could be considered as cleaning up the sect and restoring the sect rules. As for Lin Shui and Lin Wufa, who had passed away long ago, it could be considered as an explanation. But this was not the end. The sect master took out an interspatial ring and 4 treasure boxes, solemnly presenting them to Lin Shui. He stared at Lin Shui and said in a sincere tone, "Miss Lin, I have cleaned up the sect and killed the evil Changyu. The truth has come to light, and the evil Changyu has been executed. I believe your father's spirit in heaven can rest in peace. But I know that this matter has caused you great harm, and it is not something that can be solved by finding out the truth. This is a small token of my appreciation, so please accept it. It can also be considered as my compensation to your father." The sect master's words were very tactful. He did not say it was compensation for Lin Shui, but rather guilt for Lin Wufa. This made it difficult for Lin Shui to refuse. Moreover, everyone's eyes were bright. The interspatial ring that the sect master took out must be filled with a large number of god stones and cultivation resources. Those 4 exquisite and beautiful treasure boxes must also contain priceless treasures. Most monarch god powerhouses would find it difficult to refuse such a valuable gift. Once Lin Shui accepted this gift, not only would Lin Wufa's matter be settled, her relationship with the sect would also be closer. Thinking of this, everyone's eyes fell on Lin Shui, waiting for her choice. In the end, Lin Shui did not even look at the interspatial ring and treasure boxes, decisively shaking her head and refusing. I don't want any gifts. My father has passed away for so many years, and I don't need any compensation. The sect master was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly persuaded. How can this be? Your father was once one of the most outstanding disciples in the sect, with a bright future. Because of that evil Changyu, and because of our negligence, we were deceived by Changyu for so many years, causing your father to suffer injustice. Even until his death, he could not wash away the injustice. Please accept this gift, Miss Lin, or our conscience will not be at ease. Furthermore, we sincerely hope that Miss Lin can stay in the Dharma sect for a period of time. This way, we can use this opportunity to make it up to you. The sect master gradually expressed his thoughts step by step. Lin Shui did not consider it at all, and said calmly, Sect master, no matter what, I will not accept this gift. Moreover, after this matter is over, I will leave. I can't stay in the Dharma sect. If you really feel guilty and want to do something to make it up to my father, then I only have one request. The Dharma sect master was rejected again and again. He was feeling anxious and was thinking about how to persuade Shui Lin. Hearing this, he immediately let out a sigh of relief and hurriedly asked, Miss Lin, please tell me. As long as I can do it, I will not refuse. Shui Lin nodded and said, To me and my father, resources and treasures are just worldly possessions. Only innocence and reputation were the most important things. I hope that the 10,000 Dharma sect will announce to the world the truth of the old grievances and clear my father's name. The sect master was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, Miss Lin, I can understand your feelings and thoughts. Our sect will also announce the truth of what happened back then, to clear the wronged and to comfort the souls of the deceased in heaven. However, I wonder what is the scope of Miss Lin's so-called announcement to the world? The vice sect master, left and right protectors, and elders were all thinking that with the Dharma sect's power, it would probably be enough to announce the truth within the empire of Chuyun. However, Shui Lin's tone was firm as she said, The incident back then has not only spread throughout the empire of Chuyun, it has even spread throughout the entire Yunyang region. Many races and forces have mistakenly thought that my father was a traitor who betrayed his master and ancestors. Therefore, I hope that the Dharma sect's announcement of the truth will not be limited to the empire of Chuyun, but to the entire Yunyang region. The Dharma sect master frowned slightly, obviously troubled. The vice sect master, left and right protectors, and a few elders were also troubled, unable to understand Shui Lin's thoughts. Everyone spoke up to persuade her. Miss Lin, our sect will definitely announce the truth and clear your father's name. However, our sect is based in the empire of Chuyun, and our sphere of influence is limited here. We can't affect outside the empire. Miss Lin, the deceased is gone. Now that the injustice has been cleared, you have to let go of the knot and obsession in your heart. Only then can your father's soul rest in peace. Although they said so, everyone was actually muttering, accepting the sect master's gift and staying in the Dharma sect so that the sect could think of ways to make up for it. Was it not good? Why refuse the gift and let the 10,000 Dharma sect do something of little significance? Even if the Dharma sect did its best to clarify the truth in the entire Yunyang region, so what? It was more practical to accept the gift and get the benefits. The Dharma sect master also looked at Shui Lin and asked solemnly, Miss Lin, your request is a little difficult, but I can still do it if I try my best. However, please consider carefully before making a decision. Shui Lin said without hesitation, There's no need to consider. I don't need any gifts or gifts. I only want to clear the injustice and clear my father's name. Sigh. The Dharma sect master sighed silently and nodded helplessly. All right, since Miss Lin has made up her mind, I will naturally do as you say." The matter was settled. The vice sect masters, the left and right protectors, and the elders could only accept this result. Xuelin was 1,000 miles away, unwilling to accept the Dharma sect master's gift. Therefore, the Dharma sect master took the spatial ring and the 4 treasure boxes and came to Ji Tianxing. Just now, Ji Tianxing had been silent and didn't express any opinion. However, the person that the Dharma sect master was most afraid of and wanted a rope in the most was him. Coming to Ji Tianxing, he bowed respectfully and said, "Young master, the entire Dharma sect, and I would like to thank you for today's matter. If it weren't for young master's sharp eyes, who could expose Chang Yu's ugly face and find out the truth of the past, the entire sect would like to thank young master for your help. It was because of this that we could clean up the sect and restore the sect rules. This gift represents the sincerity of the entire sect. Young master, please accept it." Everyone thought that Ji Tianxing was a cold and arrogant divine king powerhouse and would most likely disdain to accept the gift. The Dharma sect master's mood was also very perturbed. He was thinking about how to persuade Ji Tianxing if he refused. Unexpectedly, Ji Tianxing did not have the intention to refuse at all. He nodded expressionlessly and said, "Since it's difficult to refuse such kindness, then this king will reluctantly accept it." As he said that, he reached out to take the spatial ring and the 4 treasure boxes and put them away. This is not the right style. The Dharma sect master, vice sect master, protectors, and elders all had a stunned expression, revealing a look of disbelief. Everyone did not expect that this seemingly ruthless and cold divine king would not be reserved at all. Chapter 3350. Not only did the Dharma sect's people not expect this, but Lin Shui was also a little confused and stunned. She quietly glanced at Ji Tianxing and asked, "You know that the Dharma sect's sect master is deliberately trying to win you over. So why did you accept his gift? This gift should be nothing to you, right?" Ji Tianxing's expression did not change, but he secretly replied, "I naturally don't lack these resources, but I helped the Dharma sect to investigate the tragedy back then, so the truth was revealed to the world. The Dharma sect is grateful and insisted on giving me a gift to express their gratitude, so of course I have to accept it. I accept this gift with a clear conscience, isn't that so?" Lin Shui nodded silently and said nothing more. Now that the gift has been given, the Dharma sect master was more confident in his heart, so he talked to Lin Shui and Ji Tianxing, trying to get close to them. His purpose was nothing more than to let Ji Tianxing and Lin Shui stay in the Dharma sect for a few more days. Lin Shui responded absent-mindedly, only thinking of leaving the Dharma sect as soon as possible. Ji Tianxing was silent, releasing his divine sense to invade the interspatial ring to check the cultivation resources inside. There were mountains of divine stones and elixirs, as well as various materials in the interspatial ring. Ji Tianxing roughly estimated that the value of those cultivation resources should be about 3 billion. This guy is quite generous, Ji Tianxing muttered in his heart, and continued to check the 4 treasure boxes. At this time, the Dharma sect's sect master took the initiative to introduce, "Young master, the things in the 4 treasure boxes are all top treasures. This king has kept them for many years and was unwilling to use them. Now that I'm giving them to you, it can be said that a hero deserves a sword." The Dharma sect's sect master took the opportunity to flatter Ji Tianxing, but he did not like it either. He glanced at the Dharma sect's sect master and said with a smile, "Since these 4 treasures are so precious, why don't you introduce them to this king?" Of course, the Dharma sect's sect master could not ask for more. He quickly nodded and said, "The treasure in the purple box is called the 7-star moon spirit mushroom. This thing grows in the cold valley and has not seen sunlight for nearly 10,000 years. It is only soaked in moonlight and contains extremely pure divine power. It is a material for refining top divine pills." Listening to the introduction of the Dharma sect's sect, Ji Tianxing opened the purple box. Sure enough, there was a palm-sized silver divine mushroom lying quietly in the box, flashing with a pale silver light. Even though this divine mushroom was a rare and priceless treasure, as the sect master had said, it was still a rare and priceless treasure. It was a divine monarch, divine pill. However, it was only a monarch-grade medicinal herb, after all. So, it wasn't that attractive to Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing nodded and put the purple box containing the seven-star moon spirit mushroom into his interspatial ring. The Dharma sect. The red jade box and the white jade box each contained a set of talisman crafting materials and 2 top-grade monarch-level divine pills. The materials for the talisman were very rare. The effects of the 2 divine pills were also very mysterious. They were specially used to heal divine soul injuries and improve divine soul power. However, to Ji Tianxing, it was still something he could do without. Only the 4th treasure attracted his attention. The Dharma sect master introduced, as usual, in the black box, there is a purple flame divine stone. This is a material for refining a divine weapon. Thousands of years ago, I got this divine stone by chance. I never had the chance to use it, so I kept it until now. I believe that in your hands, this purple flame divine stone will be able to play its role. Ji Tianxing listened to the Dharma sect master's introduction. He opened the black box, took out a sparkling purple divine stone, and observed it in his palm. Originally, he did not have much hope. He thought it was another divine weapon refining material. But he suddenly found that this divine stone looked crystal clear, and its appearance was a dazzling purple. But in fact, the divine stone contained billions of silver light spots, like the quicksand in the galaxy. As the divine stone swayed, the billions of tiny silver specks of light moved with it. This discovery made Ji Tianxing frown slightly, and a strange color flashed in his eyes. He glanced at the Dharma sect master and asked, "Are you sure this is a purple flame divine stone? Is it just a divine weapon refining material?" The Dharma sect master was stunned. Apparently, he did not expect Ji Tianxing to question, but he immediately came back to his senses. He said in a firm and confident tone, "Young master, although I don't know the real name of this divine stone, and I don't know the specific effects, but it is indeed a top divine weapon refining material. Used with other refining materials, it can definitely refine a divine weapon of the divine weapon." Hearing this answer, Ji Tianxing could not help but show a playful smile. Divine weapon refining material? Ha! He murmured to himself, and then asked the Dharma sect master, "Do you have any more purple flame divine stones?" "No." The Dharma sect master shook his head. Ji Tianxing frowned and asked again, "What about the Dharma sect's treasury? You don't have this divine stone?" The Dharma sect master nodded again and answered truthfully, "In the entire Dharma sect, there is only 1 purple flame divine stone, and I have been keeping it carefully. If young master needs such a divine stone, our sect can do our best to search and help you find more." By now, even a fool could see that Ji Tianxing was very interested in the purple flame divine stone. For the Dharma sect, this was a good opportunity to improve their relationship. How could the Dharma sect master let go? However, Ji Tianxing waved his hand and refused his kindness. He asked, "No need to look for it. You just need to tell me, where did you get this purple flame divine stone?" The Dharma sect master was a little embarrassed and explained, "It's been a long time, and I don't remember it very clearly. I need time to think about it. How about this? Young master and Miss Lin stay in our sect for a few days and have a good rest. I'll take this opportunity to think about the origin of the purple flame divine stone." The Dharma sect master seized the opportunity to ask Ji Tianxing to stay. Unfortunately, Ji Tianxing rejected him without hesitation. "No need. It's fine if you can't remember. I still have important matters to attend to." Seeing that Ji Tianxing had kept the purple flame divine stone, he turned to leave. The Dharma sect master was anxious and quickly persuaded, "Young master, please stay. I've thought about it carefully just now, and I can roughly recall it. 1,000 years ago, I left the Yin-Yang territory to run some errands and traveled to the surrounding territories. In the Golden Dragon territory in the south, I took this purple flame divine stone from a higher divine lord. That divine lord is long dead, and it's difficult to find the origin of this divine stone now. However, I've inquired about it in the Golden Dragon territory. It's said that this purple flame divine stone has appeared in the Golden Dragon Abyss and was obtained by other divine lords. Chapter 33:51 Golden Dragon Domain, Golden Dragon Abyss. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and silently memorized these two names. The Dharma sect master's understanding of the purple flame stone was limited to this. Ji Tianxing was afraid that he had a backup plan, so he asked some indirect questions. In the end, the Dharma sect master did not keep any secrets and told him everything he knew. Ji Tianxing did not stay any longer and left with Lin Shui and Chao Qingyu. The Dharma sect master, deputy sect master, left and right protectors, and many elders hurriedly followed. Everyone's words were sincere and respectful as they tried to persuade them to stay. But Ji Tianxing and Lin Shui's attitude was firm, and they were determined to leave. Everyone could not persuade them, so they could only send Ji Tianxing and the other two off Dharma Sect Mountain with regret. Swoosh! Chao Qingyu took out the divine ship, and the three of them flew high into the sky and soon disappeared into the horizon. The Dharma sect master, protectors, and elders watched the divine ship disappear into the horizon, and they all felt a sense of loss and regret. After a long time, the Dharma sect master suppressed his complicated thoughts and led everyone to repair Dharma sect Mountain and the destroyed houses and palaces. In addition, he also announced the truth of what happened 3,000 years ago in the name of the Dharma sect and cleared Lin Wufa's name. Although Ji Tianxing and the other two had left, he still had to do what he promised Lin Shui. He still had a glimmer of hope in his heart, hoping that Lin Shui and Ji Tianxing would know that he had fulfilled his promise and would see the Dharma sect in a new light. In this way, Ji Tianxing and Lin Shui would also take care of the Dharma sect if they had any interactions in the future. Inside the Emerald Divine ship in the cockpit, Chao Qingyu was steering the ship, and Ji Tianxing and Lin Shui were sitting behind him, drinking tea and resting. Ji Tianxing looked at Lin Shui and said with a smile, "Before this, although you suppressed your inner emotions and tried to stay calm, I could see that you were hiding something. But I have always been able to see that you have a lot of things on your mind. Now that the truth about your father has come to light, you should be able to undo the knot in your heart, right?" Indeed, since leaving the Dharma sect, Shui Lin's eyebrows had relaxed, and her depressed mood had obviously recovered. She stared at Ji Tianxing, nodded, and said solemnly, "You are right, I no longer have any relatives in this world, only a few of my most important friends. Now that my parents' origins and experiences are clear, my father's injustice has also been cleared. I don't have any regrets, and I can leave with peace of mind." "That's good." Ji Tianxing nodded in satisfaction and said, "All right, you can go rest and cultivate in seclusion." Shui Lin thought for a moment and asked, "I have a question that I have always wanted to ask you. How did you discover that there was something wrong with Changyu when you were killing everyone? Furthermore, he was also a high divine lord at any rate. How could he be so unbearable? You only used a little torture on him, and he was so scared that he confessed everything?" Ji Tianxing revealed a mocking smile and said, "As long as you are strong enough, even the most complicated things will become simple. From the beginning, I did not want to waste time investigating. I just wanted to kill the Dharma sect and force them to tell the truth. Since you believe that Lin Wufa was wronged, there must be something wrong with the people of the Dharma sect. There must be someone who knows the truth. Therefore, I have been monitoring the reactions of the elders and protectors. Chanyu had just revealed a clue when I found out. As for him being scared out of his wits, did you think that cutting off his hands and feet would scare him to that extent? The real fear and pressure comes from the level of the spirit. I only used a little trick to let him see a great horror, and his will naturally collapsed." Shui Lin suddenly understood and nodded repeatedly. "So that's how it is." After a pause, she asked again, "The gifts that the Dharma sect master gave you, except for the purple flame divine stone, you don't seem to be interested in any of them? Is there anything special about that divine stone?" If it was just a monarch-grade crafting material, you wouldn't care so much about it, right? After Shuai Lin finished speaking, Chao Qingyu also nodded in agreement and said, "Young master, that purple flame divine stone is a little strange. I can vaguely sense the aura of a king-grade divine object." Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded. "That's right, you all guessed correctly." He took out the purple flame divine stone from the space ring and floated it in front of Chao Qingyu and Shuai Lin for closer inspection. On the surface, it looks like an ordinary divine stone that can be used as a crafting material. But in reality, this is not an ordinary purple flame divine stone, nor is it a monarch-grade material. This divine stone has been growing in the depths of the mine for tens of thousands of years. It has already given birth to rarer metal elements. It has already undergone metamorphosis and evolution, and is truly a king-grade crafting material. I can smelt this purple flame divine stone and obtain the outer heaven purple flame silver thread, which is a material for crafting lower king-grade divine weapons. I see. No wonder I felt that this divine stone was exuding a faint king-grade divine power. Chao Qingyu was enlightened. Shuai Lin smiled mockingly and nodded. If that's the case, Wanfa sect leader's vision and knowledge are lacking. He actually mistook a king-grade crafting material for a monarch-grade material and gave it to you so generously. If he knew the true value of this divine stone, I wonder if he would vomit blood from regret? Without waiting for Ji Tianxing's reply, Chao Qingyu quickly shook his head and said, "You worry too much. With Wanfa sect leader's ability and vision, he won't be able to discover the mystery of this divine stone, even if he's given another 1,000 years. Besides, even if he knows the mystery of this divine stone, so what? With his ability and means, he can't smelt this divine stone at all, let alone refine a king-grade divine weapon." "That's true." Shuai Lin nodded slightly in agreement. She then looked at Ji Tianxing and asked, "So, we're leaving Yinyang territory now and going to the Golden Dragon's Abyss and Golden Dragon region to search for more purple flame divine stones?" Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "That's right. When I fought with Jing Feihong previously, I was at a disadvantage because I didn't have a king-grade divine weapon. Now, I have to gather enough crafting materials as soon as possible to forge a king-grade divine weapon that belongs to me." Then, he looked at Chao Qingyu and asked, "Qingyu, you're more familiar with the situation in the Boundless Heaven continent. You should know the location of the Golden Dragon region, right?" Chao Qingyu nodded quickly and said with certainty, "Of course. I've been to the Golden Dragon region a few times, so I have some understanding of it. After we leave Yinyang territory, we'll fly south for about half a year. After crossing 2 regions, we'll enter the Golden Dragon region. However, I'm not too sure about the Golden Dragon's Abyss." Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, "It's all right. As long as you know the location and direction of the Golden Dragon region, it'll be fine. When we enter the Golden Dragon region, we'll ask around and investigate the Golden Dragon's Abyss. According to my estimation, it should be a dangerous forbidden area or a very hidden ruin." Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 3352. After confirming the direction and plan, they only needed to execute it. It was still Chao Qingyu who drove the divine warship to the Golden Dragon region in the south. Lin Shuai returned to the secret chamber to rest, preparing to cultivate in seclusion for half a year. She would only come out after reaching the Golden Dragon region. Ji Tianxing also entered the secret chamber and summoned the Jiuqian 10 Absolutes Pagoda, entering the distorted space-time to cultivate. The distorted space-time shone with colorful brilliance, but it was as quiet as ever. The Crimson Flame Sacred Tree was still growing slowly. More than half of the first batch of purple divine fruits were already ripe. Ji Tianxing picked more than 20 fruits and distributed them to Yun Yao, Ji Ku, Wu Shuang, White Dragon, and the others. Black Dragon, Qian Yu, and Yank Deity King each received 2 divine fruits. This kind of purple divine fruit had the best effect on divine Lord Realm deities. It was the most beneficial. After everyone consumed the divine fruit, their cultivation speed increased noticeably. A month passed in the outside world. The journey was peaceful. Before this, Chao Qingyu was still worried that Jing Feihong would come and kill them. However, a month had passed, and the divine warship left the cloud region, but Jing Feihong did not appear. In the distorted space-time, Ji Tianxing and the others had cultivated for 4 years. Yin Yao and Ji Ku had become upper-level divine lords, and their strength was still improving steadily. The weaker Ji Wushuang, White Dragon, Black Dragon, and Qin Yu had also become middle-level divine lords. Even the most taciturn Jin Hong, who had been cultivating in the distorted space-time, had reached the 7th level of the divine lord realm, becoming an upper-level divine lord. Ji Tianxing's forces grew stronger and stronger. Everyone set breaking through to the divine king realm as their ultimate goal. There was also another piece of good news. Yank Deity King had been recuperating in seclusion for many years, and his injuries were gradually recovering. If Ji Tianxing went out to do something, he would definitely follow and protect him. However, Ji Tianxing was still cultivating in seclusion, comprehending the heaven-punishing divine art. Yank could only stay under the Crimson Flame's sacred tree to continue cultivating and improving his strength. The heaven-punishing divine art was a divine art that Ji Tianxing had comprehended and created on his own. It was born out of the heaven-punishing array. While he was cultivating, he was constantly exploring and deducing the cultivation method of the deity formula, and he was constantly becoming stronger. Before he had broken through to the God King realm, he had cultivated the heaven-punishing divine skill to the peak of the 2nd level. Now that he had reached the 1st level of the divine king realm, he started to explore and deduce the 3rd level of the cultivation technique. For 4 whole years, he had been trying to deduce the cultivation technique. After trying several 100,000 times, he had only managed to deduce half of the 3rd level of the cultivation technique. This half of the deity skill was enough for him to cultivate from the 1st level of the divine king realm to the 2nd level of the divine king realm. From this, it could be seen that the heaven-punishing divine art was becoming more and more profound and mysterious as it became more and more powerful. Time flew by, and half a year passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, Chao Qingyu had been steering the divine warship and regulating his breathing at the same time. Ji Tianxing, Lin Shui, and the others did not show their faces. Only Lan Er occasionally showed up to chat with Chao Qingyu when she was cultivating in seclusion. Although they were far away from their homeland and constantly on the move, the husband and wife were very satisfied. Their hearts were calm and steady. They sat together in the divine warship's steering cabin, leaning against each other as they looked out the window at the sea of clouds and mountains, admiring the beautiful scenery of heaven and earth. This was a warm and happy time for the two of them. Compared to the vast majority of the gods, they were truly a couple that would spend their entire lives together and grow old together without any doubts. In this half a year, the divine warship had left the Yunyang region and crossed 2 regions before finally entering the Golden Dragon region. Compared to the Tian Bay and Yunyang regions, the Golden Dragon region was located in the south and was closer to the center of the boundless heaven mainland. This caused the climate and culture of the Golden Dragon region to be completely different from the other 2 regions. Along the way, one could see that the Golden Dragon region's territory was mostly an endless sea of forests, and there were very few lofty and steep mountain ranges. Most of the places were forests and plains. Tens of thousands of lakes of various sizes were scattered all over the place, and countless rivers crisscrossed. Many of the cities and villages of the Divine Kingdom were built on the plains and near the rivers and lakes. The entire Golden Dragon region's Divine Kingdom and cities were filled with the aura of a water country. The culture also leaned towards comfort, tranquility, and laziness. Ji Tianxing's target was the Golden Dragon region's Golden Dragon Abyss. Logically speaking, a place that could be named Golden Dragon must be extremely famous. However, Chao Qingyu's understanding of the Golden Dragon region was limited. He searched through his memories for a long time, but could not find any relevant information. Therefore, not long after entering the Golden Dragon region, he planned to land in a divine kingdom to investigate the situation. 10 days later, Ji Tianqing finally ended his cultivation and came out of seclusion. His ability had improved again. His foundation of the divine Tao was more stable, and his divine power was more vigorous. When he entered the steering cabin, Chao Qingyu clearly felt an invisible divine aura and pressure. He was secretly surprised. "Young master, your ability has improved a lot in this half a year of seclusion." Chao Qingyu stood up and bowed, greeting Ji Tianqing and asking, "Not bad, my ability has doubled." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly. "Doubled in just half a year?" Chao Qingyu exclaimed in disbelief. Ji Tianqing did not say much. He pointed at the Yang Divine King behind him and said, "Come, say hello." Only then did Chao Qingyu notice that the Yang Divine King had also come out of seclusion and entered the steering cabin. However, the Yang Divine King's aura was restrained, and he was a man of few words. At this moment, he had returned to his original appearance. He was 30 meters tall and stocky. His skin was like a dark brown rock, and he exuded a heavy pressure. He kept the bronze halberd in his body and did not usually appear. Moreover, the bronze armor that the Yang Divine King had worn had long been destroyed by Ji Tianqing. Now, he was wearing a brand new set of dark silver armor, which was also a low-grade King Divine armor. He was dressed like a loyal guard as he followed behind Ji Tianqing with his head lowered. Chao Qingyu and Yang had been enemies for many years, and they were not strangers. However, it was the first time they had met face to face and greeted each other calmly. Chao Qingyu sized up Yang and smiled playfully. He said, "Yank, your attire is quite interesting. In the future, you must protect Master Yank well and fulfill your duty as a guard." Yank looked at him calmly and said expressionlessly, "Chao Qingyu, it's no use mocking me. I am Master Tianqing's guard, aren't you?" Ji Tianqing said calmly, "No, Chao Qingyu is my friend. Previously, you were just a temporary guard. Now that your injuries have healed, the duty of a guard falls on you." Yank's eyes dimmed, and he glared at Chao Qingyu with jealousy. Chao Qingyu was touched. He laughed heartily and said, "It's my honor that Master Yank treats me as a friend. However, even if I can protect Master Yank, it's still a blessing for me to be able to protect him. You must know that this opportunity is not available to just anyone. Yank, don't be depressed. Cherish it. You will be grateful to Master Yank in the future." Chapter 33:53. Although Yank was like a puppet, his life was in Ji Tianqing's hands. In order to survive, he could only accept reality and obey Ji Tianqing's orders. However, he had his own thoughts and consciousness, and he did not agree with Chao Qingyu's words. "He used my life as a hostage to force me to obey him. How could I be grateful to him? Chao Qingyu, you're the one who lost your mind. Do you think everyone else is the same as you?" Yang stared at Chao Qingyu and sneered contemptuously. Chao Qingyu did not argue with him. He smiled and shook his head. "Is your brain made of stone? You can't think straight. I don't want to waste my time talking to you. You'll understand my words in the future. If you don't believe me, just wait and see." "Humph." Yang snorted. He did not want to waste any more words with him. Ji Tianqing said, "Yank, whether you accept it or not, you have to accept reality and serve me. Since you've already greeted each other, let's work together in the future. It'll be good for everyone." Chao Qingyu quickly nodded. Yank was very reluctant, but he could only nod. Ji Tianqing did not say anything else. He looked out the window and asked Chao Qingyu, "Have we entered the Golden Dragon domain? Where are we now?" Chao Qingyu quickly reported, "Young master, we entered the Golden Dragon domain 10 days ago. We're now in the Gaiyi Empire. We'll reach the Gaiyi Empire's imperial city in 6 hours." Hearing this, Ji Tianqing slightly nodded. "That's good. We'll stop at the Gaiyi Empire's imperial city and try to find out more information about the Golden Dragon Abyss." Chao Qingyu nodded to show that he understood. Ji Tianqing and Yank stood in the cockpit and waited patiently. 6 hours passed quickly. It was now noon, and the sun was high in the sky. On the green grassland in front of the divine warship, a majestic capital city that spanned a radius of 1,000 miles appeared. The city was situated on a flat grassland, with a majestic mountain range behind it and a vast forest on both sides. In front of the city was a huge lake, like a mirror embedded in the grassland. Two huge dragon-like rivers flowed through the city. Under the scorching sun, the palaces and buildings in the city reflected a dazzling golden light. The large lake and the two large rivers were also like pearls and jade belts, overflowing with light and color. The divine ship descended from the sky and slowly landed outside the northern gate of the imperial city. The towering 300 m tall city wall was completely built with special divine stones. After experiencing thousands of years of wind and rain, it had long since been eroded by wind and frost. Under the towering vermilion city gate, there were over 100 armored city guards holding swords. The Protoss commoners who came and went had to undergo inspection and pay a certain amount of divine stones. Ji Tianxing, Chao Qingyu, and Yank appeared on the bluestone road outside the northern gate and did not attract much attention. After all, the imperial city was the core of the entire Gai Empire, and more than 8 million people lived here. The 4 city gates in the north, south, east, and west were open day and night, and more than 100,000 people entered and exited every day. It was very common for a noble young master to be dressed like Ji Tianxing, with a butler and guards. If there was anything different, it was that Ji Tianxing and Yang's appearances were too eye-catching in the crowd. Ji Tianxing was a human, which was extremely rare in the Gai Empire. Yank was 30 meters tall, like a giant made of stone, and also had a shocking and oppressive aura. However, the commoners of the imperial city were very knowledgeable, and they only took a few glances at Ji Tianxing and Yank, and they were used to it. The 3 of them arrived at the city gate, and the city guards did a routine inspection, but did not find anything out of the ordinary. After all, the 3 of them were divine king experts. They concealed their auras, and no one could find anything out of the ordinary. Chao Qingyu took out a bag of divine stones and handed it to the city guards and showed 3 identity tokens, and they were allowed to enter the imperial city. After entering the imperial city, the 3 of them walked along the main road and walked into the city at a leisurely pace. As they observed the surrounding scenery, the 3 of them secretly released their divine senses, enveloping the entire imperial city, and began to scout for information. Young master, we have already scouted, and there are no divine king experts in the entire imperial city. There are more than a dozen peak divine lords, and most of them are in the imperial city. There are about 100 high-level divine lords, and they are scattered all over the imperial city. Young master, the imperial city is in the northern part of the city, and there are many residences of high officials and nobles nearby. There are also 2 powerful sections. There are 2 factions in the southern part of the city, and they both collect and sell information, and they seem to have a wide range of customers. There's a faction in the northern part of the city that is very hidden, and they should be there to scout for information, and very few people come in and out. However, I've already scouted out that this faction has even more experts. In a short hour, the 3 of them had not even walked to the center of the city, and they already had a rough understanding of the imperial city situation. Divine king experts like them. Their divine senses could envelop a radius of 40,000 to 50,000 miles, let alone a mere imperial city. Under the envelopment of their divine senses, the several 100,000 houses and buildings in the imperial city and the 8 million plus commoners all could not escape their probing. Even the secret tunnels, secret rooms, and underground palaces hidden underground, the 3 of them could also investigate clearly. Adding on the 3 of them's experience, they could quickly determine which places were the ones they were looking for. Ji Tianxing thought for a moment, opened his mouth, and said, "The 2 factions in the southern part of the city that sell information do business with many divine races, and their information is messy and low-end. Rather, the hidden faction in the northern part of the city has a deeper foundation, and the information they have is also more high-level and confidential. Let's go to that faction and ask. If we don't gain anything, we can go directly to the imperial city to inquire, and we will definitely get the answer." Yank frowned slightly and suggested, "Young master, why go through so much trouble? Let's go directly to the imperial city, capture the emperor, and interrogate him. Won't we know everything then?" Anyway, with our strength, we can do whatever we want on the continent. What's there to be afraid of? Before Ji Tianxing could speak, Chao Qingyu frowned and retorted, Yank, you are too murderous. You always want to use violence to solve problems. We're just asking for information. Is there a need to make such a big fuss? Of course, young master is not afraid of trouble, but it's better to avoid trouble. If we really capture Emperor Gai Yi for interrogation, it will cause a big disturbance. Want to be a waste of time? Oomph. Yank snorted coldly and did not refute. The three of them entered stealth mode and teleported to the northern part of the city and appeared in an ancient manor. This manor was very quiet and seemed to be empty. However, the three of them had already seen through the disguise of this manor with their divine senses. Ji Tianxing walked to the bottom of a rockery, raised his hand, and shot out a beam of golden light, which destroyed the defensive formation that enveloped the rockery. Bang! After a muffled sound, a door of light appeared. He was the first to step into the door of light, and Chao Qingyu and Yank hurriedly followed. The three of them maintained stealth mode and quietly went underground. Soon, they entered an underground palace. In the dimly lit underground palace, there were more than 30 middle-level divine lord guards guarding the various important passages. In a secret room deep in the underground palace, there were 5 high-level divine lords and peak divine lords gathered together to discuss something. Chapter 33:54. There were more than 30 middle-level divine lords in the underground palace, hiding in the darkness and guarding the palace. However, Ji Tianxing and the other two concealed their figures and auras and stepped into the underground palace openly, as if they were entering an uninhabited area. They did not attract the attention of the guards and headed toward the secret room in the depths of the underground palace. As they approached, the three of them released their divine senses and used their trump cards to eavesdrop on the conversation of the 5 people in the secret room. The secret room was not big, only 100 feet wide, but it was built very firmly and had a large number of defensive divine arrays. To a divine lord realm powerhouse, that secret room was considered impervious to wind and rain, impregnable like a fortress. The secret room was dimly lit. Beside an oval-shaped stone table, there were 3 high divine lords and 2 peak divine lords. The person sitting at the head was obviously the leader of this faction. He was a skinny old man dressed in a black robe and a cloak. His voice was low and hoarse. However, he was a peak divine lord and his aura was cold. The other 4 divine lords were wary of him. The 2 high-level divine lords on the left of the stone table were dressed in exquisite and luxurious clothes. They looked dignified and had the aura of a leader. However, the 2 peak divine lords on the right of the stone table were like absurd and unruly monsters. One of them was dressed in gray linen clothes and wore a bronze mask with fangs. The other was a hunchbacked, bald old woman with 4 wings on her back. Not only was she blind in one eye, she also only had 2 yellow teeth left in her mouth. With Ji Tianxing and the other two's experience, they could naturally tell that the 5 divine lords belonged to different factions and they were secretly discussing something important. So, Ji Tianxing was not in a hurry to show himself. He hid in the dark with Chao Qingyu and Yank to eavesdrop on the conversation of the 5 divine lords. At that moment, the cloaked old man in the lead said in a low voice, "Everyone, ever since the incident at the Golden Dragon Abyss, we have been paying close attention to the news. Most of the news that everyone has received is provided by us. Now that half a month has passed, I believe that everyone has thought it through. Are you going or not? I hope you can give me a definite answer tonight." After saying this, he looked at the peak divine lord on the right who was dressed in gray sackcloth and wore a copper mask. He asked, "Flame Devil Gang Master, what do you think?" The Flame Demon Gang leader was wearing a mask, so no one could see the change in his expression. He replied in a low, muffled voice, "President Feng Yin, I have already made my stance clear. The opportunity to explore the Golden Dragon Abyss and hunt for treasures only comes once every 100 years. I will not miss it no matter what. Our gang's elite forces have already been assembled. They are on standby at the 7-mile bridge in the south of the city. They can set off at any time." President Feng Yi nodded in satisfaction. He then looked at the hunchbacked, bald old woman and asked, Granny Shah, has your Earth Emanations Alliance considered this carefully? Granny Evil Spirit grinned, revealing two big yellow teeth. Her voice was like an owl as she said, Of course. Although the incident at the Golden Dragon Abyss had cost the lives of many divine sovereigns, the divine sovereigns were still alive. But the more dangerous it is, the more it proves that a rare treasure has appeared. How can our league not get a share of the profits? Seeing that Granny Shah had agreed, President Feng looked at the two high celestial lords on the left and asked, Envoys, what are the plans of the Odd Lord Hall and the Wind Tower? The two high celestial lords were envoys sent by the two factions to discuss important matters. They were high-ranking people in their respective factions and held important positions like elders and branch lords. The two exchanged a look and pondered for a moment before nodding in agreement. As the saying goes, riches and honor are found in danger. Since all of you are so ambitious, the Odd Lord Hall cannot be a burden. Let's do it. Although the Wind Tower has been living in seclusion for the past few hundred years, its talents have withered, and its financial resources have weakened. If we don't go to the Golden Dragon Abyss and fight, I'm afraid that in another 1,000 years, the Wind Tower will be relegated to a second-tier faction. We can only give it a try. Although the leaders and envoys of the four factions had different words and attitudes, they all nodded in agreement. President Feng also revealed a gratified smile. He made the final decision and said, Since everyone is decided, I will give you a day to prepare. Tomorrow night, we will gather at the south of the city and head to the Golden Dragon Abyss together. The Flame Demon Gang leader, Granny Shah, the envoys of the Odd Lord Hall, and the envoys of the Wind Tower all nodded in agreement. After the discussion ended, the four high celestial lords stood up and left the secret room. When only President Feng was left in the secret room, it became quiet. At the same time, Ji Tianxing, Chao Qingyu, and Yank, who were hiding in the dark, were also secretly communicating with each other. Young Master, isn't this too much of a coincidence? We were just about to ask for information about the Golden Dragon Abyss. Who would have thought that those fellows would be talking about it and preparing to head to the Golden Dragon Abyss tomorrow? Chao Qingyu frowned. His expression was a little strange, as if he didn't believe it. Yank looked at him expressionlessly and snorted. Humph. Don't tell me you think that those 5 fellows already knew that we were sneaking in and guessed that we were going to ask for information about the Golden Dragon Abyss. So they deliberately talked about the Golden Dragon Abyss to plot against us? Chao Qingyu quickly shook his head and said angrily, Nonsense. Those are just 5 high celestial lords. How could they have such great abilities? I just find it strange. From their conversation, the Golden Dragon Abyss doesn't seem to be too hidden. But why have I never heard of the Golden Dragon Abyss? Yank looked askance at him and sneered. Ha! You just returned to the Boundless Heaven continent this year. How many years have you been away before this? Do you know how many changes have happened in the Golden Dragon domain in those years? There are too many things you don't know. Seeing that the two were about to quarrel again, Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, Both of you, shut up. Let's go find President Feng and ask him. Won't it be clear? After saying that, he led the way to the secret room. Chao Qingyu and Yank stopped arguing and quickly followed. The 3 of them came to the door of the secret room. Ji Tianxing cast a spell to break the defensive divine array at the door and open the stone door of the secret room. Yank and Chao Qingyu worked together to cast a spell to cover the light and divine power fluctuations so that they wouldn't be discovered by the guards in the underground palace. The 3 high celestial lords worked together seamlessly. Ji Tianxing only used 10 breaths of time to break the divine array and open the door of the secret room. Moreover, the entire process didn't leak any divine light or energy fluctuations, so they weren't discovered by the guards. In the secret room, President Feng was still frowning and thinking about what to add for tomorrow's operation. Suddenly, the door of the secret room opened, and 3 figures of different heights stepped into the secret room one after another. Walking at the back was a stone golem that was like a small mountain. In order to squeeze through the small door of the secret room, he had to shrink his body by 10 times. Bang! The door of the secret room closed. An extremely dangerous and heavy aura enveloped President Feng Yin. He sat on a stone bench and didn't dare to act rashly. His eyes were fixed on the three uninvited guests, and his gaze focused on the white-robed youth in the lead. The invisible pressure made him full of vigilance. Being too nervous, all the muscles and nerves in his body were taut. Chapter 33:55. There was dead silence in the secret room, and the air seemed to have frozen. After a moment of silence, President Feng Yin suppressed his fear and said calmly, "You all look unfamiliar. I don't seem to know you. I wonder, why did you break into the forbidden area of our association?" Ji Tianxing walked to the front of the stone table and looked down at President Feng Yin with a meaningful smile on his face. "You're not bad. Calm in the face of danger and tactful. Looks like we can talk." Chao Qingyu and Yang stood behind him on his left and right. Both of them stared coldly at President Feng Yin. The pressure on President Feng Yin was even greater. He felt a chill on his back, as if someone was choking him and he would suffocate at any time. He forced a smile and said to Ji Tianxing, "I'm the president of Feng Yin Society, and I'm a businessman. I sell intelligence and confidential information to various experts and forces. Since you're here, you're a guest. If I can help you, I'll be happy. But how should I address you? Why are you here?" Indeed, Feng Yin Society was a businessman. But Feng Yin Society only dealt with top experts and forces, and had always been mysterious and low-key. If it was an ordinary upper divine lord, President Feng Yin would not care at all. However, Ji Tianxing, Chao Qingyu, and Yin Ku were all too mysterious and unfathomable. That was the reason why President Feng Yin treated them courteously. Ji Tianxing went straight to the point and said, "I heard you talking about the Golden Dragon Abyss just now. You seem to be preparing to go tomorrow. Coincidentally, we also want to inquire about the Golden Dragon Abyss. You have to tell us everything about the Golden Dragon Abyss. If I'm satisfied, I'll naturally reward you. If you hide anything, you know the consequences." Just a few sentences, but it contained a lot of information. President Feng Yin's body stiffened when he heard it, and his eyes flashed with deep shock. First of all, he was talking to the people of the four major forces in the secret room, and he thought it was very secretive. But Ji Tianxing and the other two quietly broke into the underground palace and did not arouse the guards' vigilance. Moreover, they even heard everyone's conversation through the walls and defensive array of the secret room. This was simply too terrifying. President Feng Yin was even more certain that Ji Tianxing and the other two were extremely powerful. Most importantly, Ji Tianxing referred to himself as this king. Generally speaking, only the princes conferred by the imperial family and the honorable divine king experts would address themselves as kings. President Feng Yin believed that Ji Tianxing was the latter. To the present wind hidden guild, any divine king powerhouse was an existence that they could not afford to provoke. Thinking of this, President Feng Yin's attitude became even more respectful. "Don't worry, young master. This old man will explain the Golden Dragon Abyss to you in detail." After he finished speaking, he stood up and made an inviting gesture, saying, "Young master, please take a seat. This old man will slowly explain everything to you." Ji Tianxing nodded and sat down in an imposing manner. He then calmly looked at President Feng Yin. Chao Qingyu and Yang remained silent. They stood behind Ji Tianxing like two loyal guards. President Feng Yin could only stand. After sorting out his thoughts, he began to explain, "The Golden Dragon Abyss is one of the most famous and dangerous forbidden areas in the Golden Dragon region. This forbidden area appeared 1,100 years ago in the Golden Dragon Empire's territory, in the Endless Forest in the southwest." Hearing this, Chao Qingyu came to a realization and secretly said in his heart, "Yank was right. No wonder I have never heard of the Golden Dragon Abyss. So that's how it is." President Feng Yin continued, 1,100 years ago, a huge abyss suddenly appeared in the depths of the Endless Forest, which was already deserted. It caused panic among the people. There were many legends about the appearance of that abyss in the world. However, there were only two theories with the highest recognition. One was because of the War of the Gods 1,000 years ago. There were many divine kings and divine monarchs fighting in outer space. One of the divine kings and a few divine monarchs under his command died. They fell from the sky like meteors and just happened to land in the endless forest. Their divine souls and divine bodies burned, releasing a divine fire that could destroy heaven and earth. It blasted an abyss into the earth and burned the endless rock into magma. The second theory was because of the War of the Gods 1,000 years ago. A divine dragon fell from outer space and smashed into the endless forest like a meteor. The earth and rock layers were smashed through, and the golden dragon abyss appeared. It was about 10,000 miles deep and connected to the magma layer underground. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said in a playful tone, "Interesting. You actually know about the War of the Gods 1,000 years ago? Then why don't you tell this king what happened during that War of the Gods?" President Feng Yin was a little embarrassed and said with a smile, "Young master is joking. Most of the divine monarchs on the continent have heard of the War of the Gods 1,000 years ago. After all, without that War of the Gods, the boundless heaven continent would not have ushered in its first overlord, and there would not be the supreme glory of His Majesty, the Azura God Emperor. However, we know very little, and we're not clear about the reasons and results. We definitely do not know better than you. How dare we embarrass ourselves in front of you?" Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, "There's no harm in speaking frankly." President Feng Yin could only comply and explained, "According to the various sayings that I heard, it seems that more than 1,100 years ago, there was a foreign race's evil divine monarch who attempted in vain to unify the world and enslave 100 races and trillions of living beings. That terrifying foreign race's evil god fed on the divine race's people and lived on the blood and souls of trillions of living beings, using this to increase his power. It was like the legendary ancient fierce beast Tao Tai, devouring all living things to strengthen itself. Once that foreign race's evil god scheme succeeded, the entire boundless heaven continent would be plunged into an abyss of suffering, consigned to eternal damnation. Hence, the Azura God Emperor led the 800 warriors under his command to fight back. The various divine monarchs of the boundless heaven continent also led divine monarch experts to participate in the battle one after another. Everyone's will was as strong as a stronghold, cooperating sincerely and launching a decisive battle with the foreign race's evil god in outer space. In the end, countless martyrs sacrificed valiantly before successfully slaying that foreign race's evil god and protecting the boundless heaven continent. The Azura God Emperor worked hard and made great contributions, receiving the love and respect of all the divine monarchs, becoming the overlord of the continent. Hearing up to here, Ji Tianqing frowned, a contemptuous sneer flashing across his eyes. Chao Qingyu and Yank exchanged glances and muttered disdainfully, Such words can only fool the ignorant commoners. How laughable." President Feng Yin was secretly alarmed when he heard this, but he did not dare to open his mouth to refute. Ji Tianqing did not mind, raised his hand and said, "Continue talking about the Golden Dragon Abyss." President Feng Yin nodded and continued to explain, "After the Golden Dragon Abyss appeared, it attracted countless experts to explore. However, that abyss was sealed by the seven-colored earth core divine fire all year round. Even peak divine monarchs could not enter and would be reduced to ashes if they were careless. Fortunately, every 100 years, the seven-colored earth core divine fire would have a 2-month period of weakness, and many loopholes and gaps would appear. Taking advantage of that period, regardless of whether experts sneaked into the Golden Dragon Abyss, they obtained large amounts of rare treasures and top-notch materials inside." Chapter 3356. As the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. Even though the Golden Dragon Abyss is very dangerous and many Sir God experts have died in it. However, every 100 years, there will be a large number of lucky people who bring out rare treasures from the Golden Dragon Abyss. Those bountiful gains will increase the strength of the lucky people, and they will quickly accumulate a huge amount of wealth. This is a fatal attraction to other experts and forces. Therefore, every 100 years, there will be countless experts and forces entering the Golden Dragon abyss dauntlessly. President Feng Yin was very tactful. After a long explanation, there would always be a short pause to give Ji Tianxing and the other two time to think. After 10 breaths, he continued, "It's another 100 years this year. Just half a month ago, the 7-colored Earth Core divine fire that sealed the abyss started to weaken. Many experts and forces entered the Golden Dragon abyss to explore and search for treasures in the magma sea deep underground. However, half a month ago, there was an accident. In the magma sea, there seemed to be a terrifying explosion or a large number of experts fighting. Those divine lord powerhouses that had entered the abyss had all disappeared without a trace or any news. Most likely, they had perished. However, some people saw at the edge of the magma sea that there was a brilliant vision of heaven and earth in the magma sea. There were also powerful divine objects. No one knew what divine objects they were. However, more than a dozen witnesses claimed that the light and aura of those divine objects were more brilliant and terrifying than any monarch-grade divine weapon. Those are powerful divine objects that they have never seen before. They're very likely to be God, King grade rare treasures." Hearing up to this point, Ji Tianxing nodded and analyzed. So, after the news spread out, it caused the various powers and experts from all over to swarm over. Even the Wind Hidden Guild and the other 4 forces decided to join forces to explore the Golden Dragon Abyss. Since Ji Tianxing heard their conversation, President Feng Yin did not hide it anymore and nodded. "That's right. If it were ordinary monarch-grade divine objects and materials, it would be nothing to us. Every force has the corresponding stock. However, a king-grade divine object is different. It is a rare opportunity and also the hope of a peak Sir God to reach the God-King realm. Not only us, any top force in the Golden Dragon domain will not miss this opportunity. Fortunately, the news is only circulating in a small area and not widely. I reckon that only the royal families of the various empires and the top 10 top forces know about the news of the king-grade divine object." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said with a smile, "You are indeed very tactful. You are willing to tell this king about the news of the king-grade divine object. Aren't you afraid that this king will also explore the Golden Dragon abyss and search for treasures, and you will return empty-handed?" Guild leader Feng Yin also revealed a smile and flattered him at the right time. "With young master's strength and status, you may not be interested in ordinary king-grade divine objects. Of course, if you want to go to the Golden Dragon abyss, the newly born king-grade divine object will most likely be yours. Our Hidden Wind Society is willing to serve young master. If we can help you achieve your wish, it would be our honor. Not to mention the Hidden Wind Society, even the royal families and top forces of the various large empires did not dare to easily offend a godly king powerhouse. Since that's the case, tell me about your plan of action first. If this king is interested, this king will give you a chance to perform." President Feng Yin's eyes lit up and his spirit was roused. He hurriedly said, "Young master, to be honest, our Wind Hidden Guild and the other 4 forces can all rank in the top 10 in the Gaiyi Empire. But the ones who recently went to the Golden Dragon Abyss to explore and search for treasures are the various empires' royal families and the top forces. We can only join hands to have the confidence to enter the abyss smoothly." Everyone was very cautious and considered for over 10 days before making up their minds. As for the plan of action and the target, we have already formulated it long ago. This time, our target for the Golden Dragon Abyss is the Red Rock Island in the depths of the Magma Sea, because we received news that someone saw traces of a king-grade divine object on the Red Rock Island and a few nearby islands. Ji Tianxing nodded and indicated for President Feng Yin to continue. President Feng Yin added a few more sentences and told Ji Tianxing everything he knew about the Golden Dragon Abyss. After he finished, he looked at Ji Tianxing patiently and waited for Ji Tianxing's decision. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and said with a faint smile, "Old man, you are very sensible. This king is very satisfied with your performance. This king has said before that this king wants to reward you." President Feng Yin hurriedly waved his hand and bowed. "Young master, you are too serious. It is this old man's honor to be able to serve you. How would I dare to ask for a reward?" Although he said no, he was actually very excited. His blood was boiling, and he was looking forward to it. He was already fantasizing about what this white-robed god king would reward him with. He had been a peak divine lord for many years. If the white-robed god king gave him a few pointers, or gave him half a king gray divine ability, it would be enough for him to study for a lifetime. At the very least, he could see the hope of breaking through to the god king realm. But unfortunately, President Feng Yin thought too much. Ji Tianqing chuckled and said, "This king has decided to go to the Golden Dragon Abyss with you as a guest elder of the Wind Hidden Guild. How is it? Are you satisfied with this reward?" President Feng Yin had a stunned look and was somewhat at a loss whether to laugh or cry. He was also somewhat disappointed in his heart. Chao Qingyu also could not resist wanting to laugh and explained, "Old man, looks like you are not satisfied with my young master's reward. Don't be discontent. How noble is my young master? He is willing to be a guest elder of the Wind Hidden Guild for a few days. That is condescending and is your honor. Moreover, with my young master accompanying you to the Golden Dragon Abyss, all powerhouses and factions have to stand aside. Due to my young master's invincible might, who dares to block the Wind Hidden Guild's path? At that time, my young master will obtain a king-grade divine object. Your Wind Hidden Guild will also reap the benefits. Wouldn't it be perfect?" Hearing Chao Qingyu say so, President Feng Yin's brows smoothed out, and his mood was much better. Chao Qingyu continued, "During this period, if you perform well and serve the young master with all your heart, after the matter is done, the young master will casually give you a few pointers, and it will benefit you endlessly. Don't blame this king for not reminding you. The young master's identity, strength, and methods are far beyond your imagination. This is the greatest opportunity in your life, the last chance to change your destiny. If you don't grasp it, you will regret it until you die." Although Chao Qingyu exaggerated, it was also the truth. Guild leader Feng Yin already had such thoughts in mind. After hearing Chao Qingyu's reminder, he became even more excited. Of course, he did not lose his reason in his agitation and excitement. Towards Ji Tianqing trio, he still had a trace of vigilance and vigilance. After all, both sides talked until now. He did not even know the names of Ji Tianqing trio. Chapter 33:57. The cooperation between the two sides came to an initial agreement just like that. President Feng Yin's mood was very complicated. He was excited and expectant, but also somewhat nervous and worried. He had lived for tens of thousands of years. To be able to become a peak divine lord and establish such a huge foundation like the Wind Hidden Guild, it could be seen that his thoughts were meticulous and his methods were superb. But tonight's matter was really too absurd, not to mention others who did not believe it. Even he found it hard to believe. This old man has always been known for doing things carefully all my life. Why am I so reckless and impulsive tonight? Although the strength of these three people is formidable, this old man not only agreed to cooperate, but also looked forward to it in my heart. Could it be that this old man has been stuck in the peak divine lord realm for too long and my mental state has been affected? After thinking over and over again, President Feng Yin still decided to pluck up his courage and ask for Ji Tianqing trio's names. Young master, this old man boldly asks, "What is your title?" Don't misunderstand, this old man has no other meaning. It's just that the three of you are pretending to be guests of the Wind Hidden Guild and will eventually meet with the other four forces. And this old man also has to explain to my subordinates. If I don't even know your names, it's two. Yang still had a straight face and glared at President Feng Yin. Why are you so long-winded, old man? What is your identity? What qualifications do you have to ask for young master's name? President Feng Yin was depressed in his heart, but he did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. He could only apologize to Yang. But Ji Tianxing was reasonable and opened his mouth to help President Feng Yin out of the situation. Just call this King Young Master Ji to outsiders. As for Chao Qingyu and Yank, he did not introduce them. Anyway, there was no need to. President Feng Yin hurriedly bowed and thanked him. Many thanks for young Master Ji's understanding. This old man represents the entire Wind Hidden Guild to thank you for your help and support. Welcome to the Wind Hidden Guild. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, "All right, this matter is settled. We will wait here. You go and prepare the relevant matters now. We will set off with you tomorrow." President Feng Yin hurriedly bowed and accepted the order. After saying goodbye, he left the secret chamber. Just as he turned to leave the secret chamber, he stopped and revealed a bitter smile, muttering to himself, "I'm really old and muddled. That's the secret place of our society, the secret room where I cultivate in seclusion. I must have lost my mind. I actually gave up the secret chamber and let 3 strangers stay in it. Alas! However, what was done could not be undone. He could not turn around and ask Ji Tianxing and the others to leave. Right now, he could only go with the flow and hope that nothing else would go wrong. With this thought in mind, President Feng Yin quickly left the underground palace to inform the vice president, guardians, and elders. President Feng Yin was very busy. There was only one day left before the elite forces of the Hidden Wind Society would depart for the Golden Dragon Abyss. Before he set off, he had to ensure that everything was taken care of and no mistakes were made. Fortunately, Ji Tianxing and the other 2 stayed in the underground palace's secret chamber. They did not show their faces and did not cause any trouble. Ji Tianxing sat by the stone table and closed his eyes, waiting patiently. Chao Qingyu stood behind him and asked worriedly, "Young master, we trusted that old man so easily. Will there be any problems?" Ji Tianxing shook his head and said, "Don't worry. That old man shouldn't lie to us. There's also no need. The Golden Dragon Abyss isn't considered some top secret. We can find any top faction and we can inquire about the specific location. Furthermore, we don't need the Hidden Wind Society to do anything. We just need them to lead the way." Only then did Chao Qingyu feel relieved and said with a nod, "That's true too. Seeing that old man is very sensible. I reckon that he won't play any tricks either." The waiting time was very boring. Fortunately, the 3 people closed their eyes and rested, circulating their cultivation and regulating their breathing. They also muddled through the day. Very soon, it was the second night. President Feng Yin entered the secret chamber with a flushed face and paid his respects to Ji Tianxing and the others. "Young Master Ji, the elite forces of the Hidden Wind Society have already assembled. We can set off now." Ji Tianxing nodded his head and brought along Chao Qingyu and Yank, following President Feng Yin out of the secret chamber. Everyone came to the surface and saw over 40 figures standing in the courtyard under the night sky. These people were all Sir God experts. The weakest one was at the 4th or 5th level of the Sir God realm. Of course, most of them were middle-level Sir Gods. There were only 15 upper-level Sir Gods who had reached the 7th stage realm and above. Among them, there were only 2 peak Sir Gods. They were President Feng Yin and Vice President. With such strong strength, no matter which empire they were placed in, they would be a top team of experts. President Feng Yin introduced Ji Tianxing and the others grandly, saying that they were the mysterious guests of the Hidden Wind Society who had been hiding for many years. The elite Sir Gods of the Hidden Wind Society were stunned by the bluff. They actually believed it, and their morale was greatly boosted. They were filled with excitement. After that, everyone boarded a Supreme-grade Monarch-class ship and left the Imperial City. 15 minutes later, the ship arrived at a forest in the south of the city and stopped in the sky above the forest. In the surrounding night sky, there were already 4 ships docked. There were more than 30 or 40 divine lords in each divine battleship. Obviously, they were the elite forces of the Fiery Demon Gang, Earth Fiend Alliance, Wonderlord Hall, and Wind Tower. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 2 to 3 figures flew out from each ship and came near President Feng Yin. Those Sir Gods were the Fiery Demon Gang Master, Granny Evil, Wonderlord Hall Master, Wind Tower Master, and their assistants. President Feng Yin and Vice President also clustered around Ji Tianxing and the others. They came to the night sky and greeted everyone. Old Man Feng, everyone is ready. President Feng, you are finally here. Can we set off now? Our brothers are getting impatient from waiting. Let's not waste any more time. President Feng. The three beside you look unfamiliar. Everyone greeted President Feng Yin and also noticed Ji Tianxing and the others. They could not help but look at them suspiciously. President Feng Yin smiled and nodded. He introduced them to everyone. Everyone, these three are the guest elders of the Hidden Wind Society who have been hiding for many years. Usually, if there is nothing important, the three distinguished guest elders will not show themselves. Now that we are exploring the Golden Dragon Abyss, we have to do our best to invite the three guest elders. Hearing this, the leaders looked strange. They looked at Ji Tianxing and the others with burning eyes. Ha! Old Man Feng, you have hidden so deeply? We have never heard that your Hidden Wind Society has hidden guest elders before. President Feng, looking at your reaction, it seems that you are determined to get the new king-level divine object. You Feng know how to eat meat, but you have to leave some soup for us four brothers. The leader's words were sarcastic. Unknowingly, they were already on guard against the Hidden Wind Society. After all, the relationship between these forces was based on interests. They would also scheme against each other. President Feng Yin was pleased with himself. On the surface, he still had to pretend to be polite to the four leaders. However, Yank was very impatient. He could not stand their hypocritical faces. He said with a black face, "Cut the crap. Let's set off quickly." Hearing this, the leaders of the four forces were unhappy. They looked at Yank with sneers. They did not have good intentions. Chapter 3358. This guest is not only big, but he also has a bad temper. I just don't know how capable you are. Old Man Feng, your Hidden Wind Society's guest doesn't seem to take us seriously. President Feng hasn't given the order yet, but you, a guest, are giving orders. Is the Hidden Wind Society unruly? The Balrog gang leader, Granny Shah, and Master Chijuan were all mocking Yank and President Feng Yin. They didn't hide their anger and hostility towards Yank. After all, they were the leaders of their respective factions. They were the top experts and big shots in the Gaiyi Empire. Of course, they were arrogant. Yank wasn't easy to deal with either. He glared and stretched out his thick arms, wanting to teach the Balrog gang leader and the others a lesson. Fortunately, President Feng Yin and Vice President Feng Yin quickly mediated and stopped both sides. Both sides didn't make a move and suppressed their anger. Soon, everyone returned to their respective divine warships and set off. 5 divine warships flew across the night sky at lightning speed, heading straight for the Golden Dragon Empire in the south. On the way, Ji Tianxing stayed in the secret chamber to cultivate and wait patiently. Chao Qingyu and Yang followed him. They were meditating and didn't show up. According to President Feng Yin, the divine warships had to travel for 10 days without rest to reach the Golden Dragon Abyss in the Golden Dragon Empire. During this time, President Feng Yin didn't rest and received a large number of messages every day. These were the latest news that the various branches of the Hidden Wind Society had investigated and collected. Therefore, President Feng Yin knew the situation around the Golden Dragon Abyss quite well even before he reached it. Knowing that the situation in the Golden Dragon Abyss was changing every day and that the situation was getting worse, President Feng Yin's expression became more serious. About 6 days later, the divine warships were getting closer to the Golden Dragon Empire. President Feng Yin, the Balrog gang leader, Granny Shah, and the others noticed that more and more divine warships and teams appeared in the sky around them. Almost all the divine warships were top-grade Monarch level. They were fully armed and were moving at top speed. Every divine warship was imprinted with the emblems and seals of various empires and factions. Inside each divine ship, there were 12 to 100 divine lord powerhouses. Although these divine warships came from all directions, their target was the Golden Dragon Empire and the Endless Forest in the southwest. There was no doubt that these were the top factions from various empires. Many forces and powerhouses were heading for the Golden Dragon Abyss. The Flame Demon Gang leader, Granny Evil, President Feng Yin, and the others all felt more and more pressure. The worry and apprehension in their hearts gradually deepened. 10 days Yin's Wind Society. On the morning of the Golden Dragon Abyss, the divine worship was of the Golden Dragon Abyss. President Feng's was... He brought Chao Qingyu and Yin Ku to the main hall of the divine ship. He released his divine perception to check the surroundings. The sky was blue, and the sun was rising from the east. Below the divine warship was a boundless dark green forest that seemed to stretch to the horizon. The sky above the forest was filled with dense green with divine power. All kinds of flowers, plants, and trees grew wildly in the forest. Towering ancient trees could be seen everywhere. Above the forest, there were dozens of divine warships of various sizes. Some were floating in the sky, motionless, while others were rushing forward. Thousands of miles away, there was an empty area thousands of miles wide. It was a stark contrast to the forest. It was like a giant pit in the forest. In the huge, dark brown pit, colorful flames and surging black smoke continued to rise into the sky. They were still far away, but everyone could feel the scorching heat in the air. Without a doubt, that giant pit was the entrance to the Golden Dragon Abyss. Around the abyss, there were all kinds of divine warships. Of course, there were also many birds and mounts in the sky, waiting for orders. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said calmly, "It seems that the news of the Golden Dragon Abyss has spread. Many factions have arrived before us." President Feng Yin nodded with a serious expression and said in a low voice, "According to the news we received, the entire Golden Dragon domain has been alarmed in the past 10 days. More than 180 factions from 12 empires have sent their elite forces and experts to explore the Golden Dragon Abyss. I just checked. The divine warships and mounts left on the ground were left behind to provide support. The elite forces have already entered the abyss. We came a little late. If we want to gain something, we have to take more risks than the others." Hearing this, the vice president, left and right protectors, and a few elders all had serious expressions. Ji Tianxing did not have much of a reaction. He said, "There's no time to lose. We should take action." Okay. President Feng Yin agreed with his decision. He quickly left the divine warship with many divine monarchs. Like the other factions, he left 8 divine monarchs and 30 divine monarchs to guard the divine warship and wait for orders on the ground. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Ji Tianxing, President Feng Yin, and the rest of the 40 divine monarchs flew across the sky. In the other 4 divine warships, the Fire Demon Gang Master, Granny Evil, and the rest also brought over 30 divine monarchs to gather. The 180 divine monarchs from the 5 factions quickly gathered. Everyone had a simple conversation. They all felt great pressure and were very anxious. "Let's go." Following President Feng Yin's order, everyone flew across the vast forest and headed straight for the entrance of the Golden Dragon Abyss. Soon, the crowd arrived in front of him. Upon closer inspection, they realized that the entrance to the abyss was very big. It had a radius of 3,000 miles. In the past, the entrance to the abyss was sealed by the 7-colored earth core divine fire. It was like being covered by a 7-colored curtain. There were no gaps or loopholes. However, it was different now. The 7-colored light curtain that sealed the entrance was broken and filled with cracks and loopholes. There were more than 100 loopholes the size of a water tank. There were more than a dozen loopholes the size of a house. Looking down through the broken light curtain, one could see that the abyss was bottomless. The abyss was filled with balls of 7-colored divine fire. The surrounding rock walls were also burned red by the 7-colored divine fire. Dark red lava constantly flowed out and dripped into the abyss. Swoosh, swoosh. The divine monarchs from the 5 factions passed through a few loopholes and flew into the Golden Dragon Abyss. They flew straight down. As everyone dived deeper, the surrounding temperature became higher. The balls of 7-colored divine fire became denser. Everyone had to slow down and carefully avoid the seven-colored divine fire. Chapter 33:59. Everyone be careful. Follow closely, don't fall behind. These seven-colored divine fires are the fire essence of the Earth's core. Their power is unpredictable. Once they touch them, they'll be injured even if they don't die. The seven-colored divine fires are sentient and not inanimate objects. They can also swim. Everyone be careful. As the team advanced toward the abyss, the leaders did not forget to remind the godly lords to avoid the seven-colored divine fires. Indeed, the balls of seven-colored divine fires of different sizes were very dense. They were like billions of balls of light that swam and churned in the abyss. The big balls of fire were the size of houses, and the smallest was the size of a fist. Not to mention touching the balls of seven-colored divine fire. Even getting close would be unbearably scorched. More than 180 godly lords released their divine power to form shields to protect themselves. While diving, everyone was extremely cautious and careful, constantly avoiding the balls of fire. Only Ji Tianxing, Chao Qingyu, and Yank remained calm and did not take it to heart. After flying for a while, the trio's speed became slower and slower, showing signs of falling behind. Seeing the godly lords trembling with fear, Yank could not help but sneer disdainfully. Oomph, a bunch of ants. They're just seven-colored divine fires. What's there to be afraid of? Although Chao Qingyu was not as arrogant as him, he also nodded in agreement. These godly lords are also ignorant. They entered the abyss with great fanfare to search for king-level divine items. Little do they know that these seven-colored divine fires are king-level divine power. If they can refine these seven-colored divine fires, even if it's just a wisp, they'll gain a lot. As he spoke, he secretly cast a spell to swallow 2 balls of seven-colored divine fires and refine them in a short while. Ji Tianxing naturally would not let go of this opportunity. Borrowing the power of the heaven-mending pearl, 2 pitch-black vortexes appeared in his palms, constantly swallowing the balls of fire around him. The two of you make it sound so easy. To godly lords, these seven-colored divine fires are indeed beneficial. After refining them, they can strengthen fire elemental divine Tao laws. But those godly lords can't control such violent divine power at all. Once it comes into contact with the seven-colored divine fire, its divine body will definitely be burned to ashes. As expected, as soon as he finished speaking, a series of screams came from the back of the group. As it turned out, the 2 middle-level divine lords had been too nervous and had not been able to dodge the fist-sized balls of seven-colored divine flames in time. In the end, those balls of seven-colored divine flames ran into them. Their divine power shields were shattered, and their divine bodies were burned by the seven-colored divine flames. They were severely injured on the spot. One lost his entire right leg and was burned to ashes. The other one had lost his left arm, and his abdomen was burned with a large hole, from which blood kept gushing out. Although such heavy injuries were not fatal, the 2 divine lords were still in unbearable pain. Their combat strength plummeted. The surrounding divine monarchs wanted to go over and help, but the seven-colored divine flames were too dense, so they didn't dare to act rashly. They could only worry helplessly. The few leaders flying at the front of the group were also alarmed by the 2 Sir God screams. They all stopped and turned around to check the situation. The 2 leaders immediately frowned when they saw that the 2 injured divine lords were from Wonderlord Hall and Balrog sect, respectively. I already told you to be careful. Why were you still so careless? There's no point in following the group with such heavy injuries. Return to the divine warship to heal. Thus, the 2 injured Sir Gods had no choice but to leave the group and fly out of the abyss. Then, the group continued to fly toward the bottom of the abyss. 15 minutes later, the group had flown 9,000 miles underground, but they still hadn't reached the bottom of the abyss. At this time, the group was moving slower and slower, and the number of people was also decreasing. After all, the closer they were to the bottom of the abyss, the higher the temperature and the more concentrated the seven-colored divine flames were. There were even violent shock waves and hurricanes at the bottom of the abyss that carried billions of seven-colored divine flames. They came crashing down like raging waves. All the Sir Gods found it difficult to resist and could only try their best to dodge. Most people were able to dodge the fireballs, but there were always a few unlucky Sir Gods who were hit by the seven-color divine flames and were severely injured. In just 15 minutes, the number of people in the group had decreased by more than 30. None of the 5 forces were spared. They all had more or less Sir Gods killed or injured. Under such circumstances, the leaders of the 5 forces all had ugly expressions and heavy hearts. They knew that the Golden Dragon Abyss was very dangerous, but they didn't expect the situation in the Abyss to be even more complicated. The 7-color divine flames were so violet. Soon, another quarter of an hour had passed. The group slowly dived for more than 800 miles. In another 100 miles, they would reach the lava sea at the bottom of the Abyss. At this time, another 2 Sir Gods at the back of the group were hit by the 7-colored divine flames. One of the Sir Gods had a huge hole burned in his chest. His organs were reduced to ashes and his body was almost destroyed. The other Sir God was even worse. His entire head was burned to ashes. Not only was his body destroyed, even his godhead was destroyed. He died on the spot. Coincidentally, these 2 Sir Gods weren't far from Ji, Tianxing, and company. The leaders heard the screams and turned to look again. Seeing the Sir Gods of the Fire Demon Gang die and the Sir Gods of the Odd Lord Hall severely injured, the 2 leaders frowned and their faces darkened. How many times do I have to repeat myself? Can you be more careful yourselves? The leader of the Odd Lord Hall shouted angrily. The leader of the Fire Demon Gang stared at Ji, Tianxing, and company. His eyes flashed coldly as he asked, "What are you 3 doing? As guest elders of the Hidden Wind Society, why aren't you leading the way? Why are you hiding at the back of the group?" Hearing this, the leaders and experts of the various forces gathered their gazes on Ji, Tianxing, and the other 2. The leader of the Odd Lord Hall was also gloomy. He sneered and said, "Not long after we entered the Abyss, I found them sneaking around and deliberately hiding at the back of the group. Tell me, what are you trying to do?" Granny Sha didn't hide her anger. She sneered and said, "What a coincidence. There were a few times when people were burned by the 7-color divine flames, and they all appeared near you. I suspect that you are the ones behind this, deliberately harming our people." The leader of the Wind Whispering Tower was stunned for a moment. Then realization dawned on him. He shouted angrily, "That's right. I found it strange before. Now I finally understand. The first half of our group can basically avoid the 7-color divine flames. Only the people at the back of the group are burned by the divine flames every few days. They must be deliberately harming us." Instantly, the atmosphere froze and the atmosphere became tense. More than 100 Sir Gods from the 4 forces glared at Ji, Tianxing, and company. Their eyes were filled with hostility. In fact, Ji, Tianxing, and company weren't innocent. They had been at the back of the group and devoured the 7-color divine flames around them when no one was paying attention. Those 7-color divine flames could move and were very dense. Then, they cast spells to guide them, and thousands of divine flames would speed up and fly toward them. The Sir Gods who were closer to them were naturally more likely to be affected. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3360. Just as they were about to reach the bottom of the abyss, the team stopped moving forward. The people from the Fire Demon Gang, Earth Fiend Alliance, Wonderlord Hall, and Wind Whisper Tower were all glaring at Ji, Tianxing, and company with hostility. The Sir Gods who were closer to them quickly distanced themselves from them and were on high alert. Seeing this, President Feng Yin and Vice President felt a headache coming on. They quickly tried to persuade the 4 leaders. "Everyone, what are you doing? How can you accuse our guest elders for no reason?" The 4 leaders are heartbroken over the loss of your men. Everyone can understand your feelings, but you can't lie through your teeth. Everyone knows that other than the Divine King, no one dares to touch the rainbow divine fire. No matter how capable our 3 guest elders are, it's impossible for them to tamper with this matter. Not only did your 4 forces lose men, our Wind Hidden Guild also had 6 Sir Gods injured and forced to retreat from the abyss. However, President Feng Yin and Vice President Feng Yin's persuasion was completely useless. The leaders of the four forces already hated Yank. Now that the four of them had joined forces against Ji, Tianxing, and company, they would not give in easily. Don't tell me these useless things. Why are the three of them at the back of the team? Isn't it because they have a guilty conscience? Old man Feng, why don't you explain to me why the divine monarchs who were in trouble were all nearby them? President Feng, don't affect the cooperation of our five forces because of those three guys. If you don't want a plan to end, then ask them to scram. That's right. Those three guys have ulterior motives. Our Wind Whisper Tower will never be with them. The four leaders were very determined, and their goal was clear. They wanted President Feng Yin to chase Ji, Tianxing, and company away. Otherwise, the four forces would join forces to explore the Golden Dragon Abyss and leave the Wind Hidden Guild alone. There were at least 100 forces exploring the Golden Dragon Abyss now. If the Wind Hidden Guild fought alone, it would be difficult for them to even move an inch, let alone explore and search for treasures. Once they had a conflict with any of the forces, the Wind Hidden Guild would be in danger. The four leaders were very certain that President Feng Yin would not dare to take the risk and would definitely follow their advice. As expected, President Feng Yin understood the meaning of the four leaders. His face immediately changed, and he asked angrily, "What do you mean? Are they joining forces to pressure me? You guys are being so unreasonable. What if I don't agree? Could it be that you want to abandon the Hidden Wind Society and join forces with the four of you?" The Flame Devil Gang leader revealed a mocking sneer and nodded. "Old Feng, it's good that you understand in your heart. It won't sound good if you say it out loud. In short, those three guys aren't good people. They have ulterior motives. We don't want to associate with them. Either he chased those three guys away, or Feng Yin would act alone. Think about it yourself. Granny Evil, Home Master Qi Jun, and the Wind Whispering Tower Master all nodded in agreement. Yes, the Flame Devil Gang leader's words are also our thoughts. Old Feng, you're a smart man. Don't make a mistake. Don't blame us for being merciless. If you want to blame someone, blame your three guest elders. They destroyed the trust between us." Seeing the unyielding attitude of the four leaders, the expressions of Feng Yin and the Vice Guild leader turned even uglier. "This guild leader, what should we do?" President Feng Yin frowned and pondered. He was hesitant as he looked at Ji Tianxing and the other two. He wanted to say something, but hesitated. However, even if he was ostracized by the four major forces and was slandered and attacked by many Sir Gods, Ji Tianxing's expression did not change. His expression was indifferent. Chao Qingyu was also very calm. His eyes swept across the people from the four major forces and firmly remembered the 100 over people. He was already mentally prepared that Feng Yin would act alone. If the people from the four major forces were to act together and encounter any danger, not only would he not help them, he would also want to add insult to injury. Yang's temper was not so restrained. When the four leaders attacked and slandered them for harming the other Sir Gods, he was already filled with anger and murderous intent. Now that the situation had developed to such a stage, his anger was completely ignited. Originally, I didn't want to argue with you, but I didn't expect you to continue. You want a yard after taking an inch? You bunch of trash dare to boast shamelessly and ask me to scram?" As he spoke, Yank grinned hideously. He clenched his fists and walked towards the four leaders. President Feng Yin's expression changed. He hurriedly came forward and advised anxiously, "Stop it quickly. Let's talk nicely. Don't start a conflict. I believe that you have no intention of harming others. You can explain to them." Before Feng Yin could finish, Yank stretched out his huge palm and pushed him away. "You want me to explain to this bunch of trash? Who do they think they are? They're just like ants. Are they worthy?" As he cursed, Yank's 10 feet tall body emitted raging anger and murderous intent. He ignored the 7-colored divine fire that flew towards him and flew towards the four leaders with a hideous smile. Balrog Gang leader, Granny Evil, Qi Hall Master, and Wind Whisper Tower Master heard Yank's arrogant words and were instantly enraged. All of them were seething with anger and murderous intent. "Ha ha! That stone-like monster! How dare he insult us? How can there be such an arrogant and reckless person? I've lived for so many years. This is really an eye-opener. Come, come, come. Let me see what kind of ability a big monster like you has. How dare you be so arrogant? Old man Phone, this is your family's guest who is asking for death. Don't blame us for being ruthless. As they sneered and cursed, the four leaders took out their divine weapons and madly accumulated divine power in their bodies. They had all locked on a Yank's aura and were ready to use a fatal blow at any time. Yank flew to 100 feet away from them and stood still. He did not use any weapons. He only twisted his neck and fists, looking like he was about to start a massacre. It seemed that a great battle was about to break out. The people of the four major forces were gloating and waiting to watch a good show. The people of Feng Yin were very worried and tried to persuade him. President Feng Yin knew that he could not persuade Yank. He quickly flew to Ji Tianxing and said in an almost pleading tone, "Young Master Ji, please ask him to stop. Please do not start conflict. Otherwise, they will abandon Feng Yin Guild and we will be unable to move forward. We can only return empty-handed." Ji Tianxing looked at him expressionlessly, then frowned and asked, "What? Feng Yin Guild can't explore the Golden Dragon Abyss without the four major forces? Are you going to be a coward when they join forces to bully Feng Yin Guild?" Guild leader Feng Yin was suddenly at a loss for words. But the vice president was quick-witted. He suddenly thought of something and quickly reminded him, "President, didn't you tell us that each of these three guests is equivalent to 1,000,000 troops? Any one of them is equivalent to 10 Sir Gods. You didn't lie to us, did you? If that's the case, then why should our Hidden Wind Society swallow this humiliation? It shouldn't be a problem even if we act alone, right?" Chapter 3361. Hearing the vice president's reminder, the Hidden Wind Guild leader was stunned. I did say that." He had to admit this, but his heart was still beating like a drum, and he was uneasy. After all, he only guessed that Ji Tianxing and the other two were divine kings. He had never seen Ji Tianxing and the other two in action, so his guess had not been confirmed. He was still uncertain. If Ji Tianxing and the other two were not divine kings, the Hidden Wind Guild would be finished. Just as he was hesitating, Ji Tianxing said calmly, "Yank, take it easy. Just teach them a lesson." "Yes, sir." Yank did not even turn his head and answered reluctantly. The four leaders laughed even harder when they heard that, and their tone was full of disdain. "Ha ha, are those three crazy? Do they really think they're the best of the best? That big monster dares to attack us. Old man Feng, you heard it. It's not that we don't want to give you face, but your three honorable guests are looking for death." After saying that, the four leaders waved their divine weapons at the same time and released a destructive divine power. They attacked Yank together. In order to suppress the Hidden Wind Guild and intimidate everyone, they did not care about their reputation and identity. They attacked Yank together. They wanted to kill him in one blow. Of course, Yin could tell what they were thinking. A cold glint flashed across his eyes as he suddenly let out an angry roar. "You are looking for death." As he roared, he opened his palms, which were as big as a house, and created a hurricane that covered the sky. Instantly, the thousands of seven-colored divine flames in all directions were sucked to his side. Roar! Under his control, more than 4,000 rainbow divine fires of different sizes gathered in hundreds of rainbow divine fires, which are the size of water tanks. They attacked the four leaders at once. The hundreds of rainbow divine fires were solid, and their power was more than 10 times stronger than normal fires. Moreover, Yank released an invisible divine power to suppress the four leaders, which slowed them down and made it impossible for them to dodge. Boom, 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 boom. The hundreds of rainbow divine fires destroyed the divine powers that the four leaders had used and drowned them. Seeing that, the hundreds of Sir Gods widened their eyes in shock and exclaimed in disbelief. The Sir Gods who were closer to the scene retreated in fear, afraid that they would be affected by the rainbow divine fires. The next moment, there was a deafening sound. Boom, 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 boom. More than 100 balls of 7-color divine flames struck the 4 leaders one after another, creating a sea of sparks that blotted out the sky. The surging flames swept out in all directions like a giant wave, drowning dozens of divine lords. More than 20 balls of 7-color divine fire blasted into the crowd of the 4 forces, sending dozens of divine lords flying. The rainbow divine fires, the divine fires were completely covered the entire area, was completely. Heart-wrenching screams and desperate cries of near death erupted continuously in the sea of fire, rising and falling one after another. The Wind Hidden Association's president, vice president, a few elders, and many Sir Gods of the Wind Hidden Association felt their scalps tingle as they watched. Their faces were filled with horror as cold sweat broke out on their backs. After a long while, the rainbow divine fires in the deep abyss dissipated. The deep abyss gradually calmed down, and everyone saw what had happened to the 4 leaders. The Fire Demon Gang Master and Granny Evil Spirit were the worst. Not only were their divine bodies destroyed, but their divine heads were also burned to ashes. The Strange Lord Hall Master and the Wind Listening Tower Master had their divine bodies destroyed. Only one divine head was left, and there were cracks on it. Obviously, their divine heads were damaged, and their consciousness was dizzy. They couldn't fight anymore. In addition, more than 70 Sir Gods from the 4 forces were affected by the rainbow divine fires and suffered heavy casualties. More than 50 Sir Gods were burned to death by the rainbow divine fires. Their divine heads and divine bodies were burned to ashes. The other 20 or so people were lucky enough to survive, but they were also severely injured from the burns, and they were filled with fear. Only 40 Sir Gods were far away from the battlefield. They retreated when they saw the situation wasn't right. However, their leaders were either killed or left with only one divine head. They couldn't continue exploring the deep abyss. The 70 Sir Gods who survived were scared out of their wits by Yank. They ran away in a panic. The Sir Gods only calmed down when they were 1,000 miles away from Yank. They were divided into 4 teams. They glared at the Wind Hidden Society and Ji Tianxing. They hated them to the core. President Feng Yin, your guest elder, actually killed our gang leader. Just you wait. The Fire Demon Gang will remember this. Wind Hidden Society, the Earth Emanations Alliance will never forgive you. Old man Feng, you are so evil. How dare you kill your comrades? Just you wait. We will return to the Gai Empire and announce your evil deeds to the public. The Vice Gang Masters, Vice Hall Masters, and Vice Alliance Masters of the 4 forces were more or less injured. However, they all survived. They were furious and scolded the Wind Hidden Society and Yank for their crimes. President Feng Yin and Vice President Feng Yin were stunned. They knew that Ji Tianxing and the other 2 were strong. However, they didn't expect Yang to be so powerful. He killed 4 leaders and more than 50 Sir Gods in one move. Now, the Wind Hidden Society had become the target of public criticism. They had become sworn enemies with the 4 forces. President Feng Yin was at a loss when faced with the accusations and scoldings of the 4 forces. He was dizzy. At the critical moment, Yang stepped forward and scared off the people from the 4 forces. He clenched his fists and looked at the Sir Gods with murderous intent. He smiled cruelly and said, "How dare you threaten me and take revenge? If that's the case, don't even think about escaping. All of you will die here." The moment he said that, the Sir Gods from the 4 forces were so scared that they shrank their necks. All of them were like stray dogs. They ran away with their tails between their legs. They didn't dare to stay for even a moment. In the blink of an eye, the 70 Sir Gods disappeared without a trace. In the abyss, only Ji Tianxing and the other 2 were left. There were also 24 Sir Gods from the Wind Hidden Society. The left and right protectors, a few elders, and many Sir Gods were very afraid of Ji Tianxing and the other 2. They hid far away and didn't dare to get close. However, the vice president was overjoyed. He was shocked and shouted excitedly, "Too scary, too powerful." With such powerful guests, why would the Wind Hidden Society worry about not being able to dominate the world? Guests, whether we can live a good life in the future depends on you. Compared to the vice president's excitement, President Feng Yin couldn't be happy. The facts proved that he was right. Ji Tianxing and the other two were divine kings. At least, Yang could easily control the seven-color divine fire. This was proof that he was a divine king expert. Because of this, President Feng Yin understood that the small wind hidden society couldn't keep the three divine kings. After this adventure, the three divine kings would probably leave. What was left for the wind hidden society was the hatred and revenge of the four forces. Young Master Ji, didn't you ask him to take it easy? How did it end up like this? President Feng Yin looked at Ji Tianxing pitifully. He wanted to cry, but had no tears. Ahem. Ji Tianxing was a little embarrassed. He smiled and said, "The big fool has a bad temper. Get used to it.